Hey guys, Fox Conquest number 2. I guess we're playing a 2Q today. So I'm playing my fairly typical double 3-4 opening, and because white placed the other 3-4 point facing mine with such a big distance between them on the left side, that's why I'm approaching here, because yeah, usually it's really good actually to approach the opponent's 3-4 point if they made it facing yours like this, because yeah, the left side is like extra wide in this case, so there's a lot of potential to be had there. And okay, so white kicked, but then white descended. So this is not really recommended because now like white can get squeezed in on this side whenever I want. I can also just tanuki this as well because my stones here are pretty light. And you know, with white descending down to the second line like this, it makes it harder naturally for me to make territory now over here. And so I don't necessarily even have to. So the choices I'm thinking about are to squeeze white in from here and just build thickness, or to play something on this side to kind of indirectly help these stones and also the corner here, or just approaching the corner over here. But you know, because white can't really like make too much on the bottom, because I can always squeeze in from here, so I'm gonna actually just play over here somewhere. Yeah, so this, you know, adds a little bit of help to these stones, but actually I don't really care too much about these stones because I haven't really invested much. And actually, white already invested a stone on the second line to make it harder for these stones to make any territory. So I care even less about them now. So white's attacking these two stones, but I'm not really going to worry about that. So yeah, we're just going to approach this corner now, and maybe soon after we will play somewhere in this quadrant of the board up here. You know, even if white keeps playing more stones to capture these two, there's not going to be a lot of territory here, right? So you don't really need to save those. So white's doing this again. And now the question is, will I play differently this time? What should we do? I think what we'll do is just extend on the fourth line. And, you know, don't worry about this territory for now. And just focus on the effect it's going to have on the whole board, namely the top side. So if white starts leaking in here like right away, we don't really care. We'll just let white do whatever they want to do, get stronger. You know, white won't gain very many points, and then we can, yeah, just play elsewhere again. Maybe, yeah, something around here. And yeah, with the stone sticking out here, as well as the one over here, it's going to be difficult anyway for white to make a whole lot of points on the bottom. We can always disrupt it at any time. We have like this attachment here, or jumping out, or, you know, something similar on this side. So yeah, it doesn't really matter. Okay, my opponent disconnected. I wonder if they're gonna return. Okay, so the other opponent never returned, so we're in a new game now. So once again, I'm doing double 3-4, and because white placed the 3-4 point here, you know, I have a chance to actually, yeah, approach it, you know, kind of from my upper right corner. So we'll do that. And just like the previous opponent, they're kicking us again. Now let's see. Okay, so this person actually finished it properly instead of descending down here. So now we're just going to extend, and yeah, it's going to help this corner over here. And in the future, we can make a two-dimensional framework by playing on the top. So now white approaches this side. And so what do we want to do? Locally, the best move is to attach here and get the corner points. But of course, you want to also consider the other side of the board. In this case, yeah, I'm just going to go for the territory though. It's, you know, most often it's good enough just to attach and draw back like this. You get a really big corner, and locally you get more than white. So I'll just keep it simple and play the joseki normally, but you can choose to play a diagonal here as an alternative, among other things. And so white finishes like this, and now we have two main choices here, really. You know, play something in the upper right, like enclosing the corner, or approach, or maybe 3-3 invade, one of those. So A, B, and, you know, something around here, C. So if we invade, white probably blocks on this side, and then we push along like this, or we can approach and just stop white from building much of like a moyo. So yeah, I think personally I prefer a game that's very divided with lots of groups on the board. So rather than focusing on my own area, I'm going to actually approach. But I think, you know, there's a pretty good chance that the best move is actually to close the corner up here. There's actually a lot of open space in this area. So building your own stuff up here is probably a good way to go. I think in this case, I'm just going to approach. I don't want to let white build too much moyo in the left side. And if I invade the 3-3 point, then white gets a big wall, and you know, I'll have to deal with the big moyo over here. And after that, right, if I start building my own moyo potential in the upper right quadrant, and white already has a huge wall down here, then, you know, white can be the first one to start expanding and sort of like decreasing my scale while increasing their own, like maybe playing in the center, or, you know, starting to develop the center before black does. So I don't really want to be behind in the moyo versus moyo race. So yeah, that's why I chose to play this way. And so white's pincering directly. So I'm going to show you guys what I usually do against this kind of tactic. So white kicks and you extend with the iron pillar, the Nobi formation here. And then white pincers instead of reinforcing on this side somewhere. So what I usually do here is attach like this. And extend one more time so that you don't get put into Atari. And if white pushes again, interesting. So if white pushed again, right, I was going to cut like this and sacrifice 2 stones and get myself a forced move here, here, and here, making white capture those, and then just connect at the end. And you can actually see this in some of my previous videos. But white chose to pincer again, like add a second pincer. This is a bit strange, especially considering that there's a big problem in the corner now. So let's see. First of all, what happens if we cut? So if we cut and white Atari's this way, we extend down, and if white extends down again like this and we just capture this stone, then that's a really good result for us, and still the corner is not perfectly alive yet. If white tries to Atari this way, we extend and white pushes in again. Well, immediately there's going to be a problem if we even just Atari here and play a ladder. But another issue for white is like if we just extend again. Yeah, so it looks like cutting here is going to work just fine. But honestly, even if all you got in Sente was just the turn here, or maybe the peep at the 3-3 and then connecting under here, like there's a lot of ways to get a good result here now. So this was a mistake for white. Yeah, so if white tries to resist like this, white is currently ahead of us by 1 liberty, right? White has 3 liberties and black has 2. But what happens if black pushes in like this? So white's gonna hane, and of course black can Atari. And if white connects, then black captures the stone in the corner. And if white extends it down, black's going to Atari. White Ataris, black takes. White throws in, black takes. And if white connects, then actually white can capture black this way, but then instead of trying to save these 3 stones, white can just connect back this part and get a big reduction on the corner. So now that white just played away though, you know, it seems like black can just capture everything. So yeah, we can just Atari in the corner, I guess. If white tries to resist with a ko shape, we can just double Atari instead of fighting ko. And now that white connected, we can just capture like this. So yeah, this is a lot of mistakes for white actually. So now we've captured the whole corner. And so, you know, as white, you have to ask yourself, like, what are these pincer stones really doing now? They are getting a bit of territory, but it wasn't really worth losing the whole corner. And to top it off, black can actually still invade here. Sometimes with this simple invasion on the 3rd line here, or sometimes with the 4th line attach And then if white plays Hane, then you also counter Hane. So white's playing here. We'll block the 3-3 point. And now white has a liberty shortage already. So we can Hane. Hane the head of two stones blindly. That's one of the proverbs. And now that white has played this Hane, you know, we can actually consider to cut here. However, this is already good for black. So let's just keep it simple and extend. You know, if we cut white, then, you know, we have to do a lot of reading to make sure that that black doesn't kind of self-destruct. And, you know, even if the cut can work, this is already good for us. We get fourth line territory, big corner, and still white has issues. So still white didn't fix the cut. So what happens if we cut now? Well, if we cut now, you know, white might just sacrifice the one stone here.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Instead of cutting, I'm actually going to try to attack the whole thing. If white connects, okay, so white chose the tiger's mouth connection, right? But the thing about that is that now we can connect here because these two stones only have 2 liberties left. On the other hand, if white did the solid connection, we wouldn't have been able to connect under, but we would just run out this way and white would have a weak group here and also over here. So by playing the tiger's mouth, white is kind of staying connected, but then black gets to connect under and basically take all the territory. So either way, it's a really bad result for white. So yeah, this extension over here was too soon for white. And even the first move over here was pretty questionable because when black blocks a 3-3 point, you know, white only has 3 liberties left. And in fact, this move isn't even sente really either. Because even if white Ataris this way, when we extend, it's Atari on white.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
And if white Ataris this way, we just extend up. And if white pushes in, we get the Atari here. And because of that, because I know that we can turn white into a dumpling either way, that's why I'm cutting here. If this stone here were a little closer, then I wouldn't cut because there could be a ladder. But in this case, it's very difficult for white to play now. I don't see a way white can capture these 2 stones. So yeah, this is like the best way to give white a headache here. So this is actually sente against this stone. If we go here, then white's just going to go here. And it looks like we're captured there after that.
9,
What if we go here then?
7, 6, 5.
If we go here, and if white keeps pushing, we can actually capture these 2. So this move here, to take away a liberty from these 2, is pretty much the only way to actually save our other 2 black stones. So if white had pushed here, we would just bump once like this, and then we would attach here to capture those 2. But since white is saving those 2, we of course need to move out. With one of these 2 moves, basically. So in this case, I will push because it would give us Atari after. So we have to keep going. So let's push again. And white chose to jump. I think this was a bit premature. Because now black can wedge and give white some pretty serious problems. So I'm going to go ahead and wedge. So now white has 2 cutting points, right? One of which is Atari. So white played here, but it isn't really stopping us from cutting here because we have this ladder. Not to mention the Atari here. I'm going to wait on the Atari here because, you know, white's going to just sacrifice it anyways. I want to see what white's going to do against this cut.
7, 6, 5.
Maybe white will try to squeeze by jumping here. But okay, white chose to just defend this one eye over here. So now we're going to help this one stone and try to also make sure white cannot get out. Of course, another option would be to just protect our territory. But if we do that, white can do something that threatens both at the same time, maybe attaching here.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So I'm just going to push down because it's kind of the best shape I can see for blocking off this area and also saving our one stone. It hurts our territory over here, but you know, we can defend that afterwards.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay, so I'm going to jump down and defend the shape here before white starts to do all sorts of annoying squeezing moves like playing themselves. And I'm guessing white's going to turn here now. And white can probably get another eye in this area, but that's fine because we can get Sente and start attacking the top white group. Okay, so white chose to play here. We can't really push and cut because then white's going to be able to squeeze these 3 stones with a Liberty shortage. So we can't push here. It's either defending
9,
like this or breaking white's shape first.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's just defend the shape and see what white does. If white just plays this way, which white did, then now white has a serious problem over here. So a couple of things, you know, we can break white's shape like this, or we can actually sacrifice these stones in order to capture all of these stones. And I'm getting tempted to do that.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
I think we're going to do a trade here because white has invested several, you know, white has already invested 2 moves into these stones over here. And it looks like if we capture those, it's going to be quite a bit of territory actually. So what I'm actually going to do is, yeah, just sacrifice these 3. Or more like just these 2 here. And yeah, just like this.
Yoyomi now starts.
So white can Atari here now, but that's fine. Because the corner is still alive and we get to capture all these. White was going to live anyway with some group. So we also have a connection left over here. Of course, white can just force right away if I don't play here. There is some aji where white can cut here and capture 2 stones here.
5, 4, 3, 2.
So what's the best way to contain these stones? We could attach on top, but I think a better way would be to attach here. Basically like offering 1 stone as a sacrifice. It's kind of a Tsuji because now you can just cut here. And in this case, we want to Atari here like this. White's going to take and then we can seal it off. Even if white lives inside, white's damaging the nearby territory quite a bit. You can see a pattern, something recurring here, right? You know, white keeps making a bunch of like tiny life everywhere, and black keeps getting stronger everywhere, and white doesn't really have much territory, only this one here. And there's also a weak group sitting around up here too. So before we do anything, well, first of all, we need to worry about this cut. So we could just play here to capture.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
I guess we just play here to capture. This is where white actually should have played. So this is not really a problem because it looks like white doesn't have very many liberties. And on top of that, we have a move like this. But yeah, even if we just played inside of here somewhere, it looks like black's going to win the Liberty fight. So now that white connected here, we can simply capture this. And regarding the issue up here that I was talking about, actually black can play here soon to fix it in Sente because this is going to threaten to capture the whole thing. So white extended here, trying to create some trouble. This is fine. First, we can get this exchange in. This is extremely helpful for the bad agi we had left in our corner. Now that that's all solved, we can move on and just make sure that this group over here is healthy. We can do that in a number of ways. We can move this way, which also threatens the top. And we can also move this way and just attack these two stones.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to see how white responds to this peep. Even if white moves this way with this two stones here, we can just run also the same way. And then if white runs down with this group, again, we just run out as well. Okay, so white responded. This will give us a little bit of help for attacking these later. So now I'm going to see actually what is white going to do if I threaten the two stones. So maybe knight's move here. And, as white keeps helping these stones, the stones at the top are becoming more endangered. White does have a really annoying move. If white plays here, then our shape is kind of under attack, and there's like a threat to cut as well. So, might be a good time to play a move on this side now. I would like to play here to take away white's eye space, or even here, which is a peep. But I'd also rather not get my shape ruined with this group here. That's fine. White is helping us get stronger right now. These moves are not really going to help white make alive. So ultimately, white still needs to extend here. And still there's some danger inside actually because of the way the shape is. So white plays here. There's a few things we could do here, some fancy things. Like wedge and Atari and then squeeze and then cut. But let's just keep it simple and connect because this isn't really helping white anyways. White probably plays here now and we don't really care. We just extend. But okay, white played here and white's actually in pretty big trouble now because this didn't really accomplish anything. And now there's all these problems for white's shape. Like for example, let's say that we push here now. We're going to check if white's going to save these two. And of course, if we captured those, then our dragon on the outside would be alive, right? Now we can peep here. Because we made sure that white is going to respond. We made white invest another stone in these three. So now we know that white's going to respond to the peep. So white's going to connect. And after that, we simply play here, save this one stone, make some territory, and take away white's eye space. And now white has only one hope, which is to escape. You can see now how the peep over here might help us, right? We're still not sure exactly how it's going to help, but it seems to be helping when white tries to start escaping. So this isn't really Sente against these two stones. So we just need to make sure that white can't get out.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So anything around here should be fine. Like this knight's move or maybe just jumping here. And if white plays another move around here, we do need to respond on the top, but that's fine, right? So yeah, I wasn't really aiming to capture this originally, but white made really big mistakes. So it's kind of like, there's no reason not to capture it at this point. My real aim was actually to get a really good attack on these three stones over here. But, at this point, there's really no reason not to just capture this thing. All right, white saved this one stone, but you know, our outside is pretty strong actually, and there's no issues on the top. Nothing I can see. So basically, we just need to seal the deal by making sure our outside is even stronger. There isn't really much else you really need to do now. So we could just attack this thing now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
So we can start with this peep, because in this case, there's no reason not to peep. And this will actually help us, okay. Okay, so we won that last game, and actually after the person resigned, it immediately popped us out of that game. So, you know, the game window just like instantly disappeared. But yeah, we won that game. Anyway, I'm gonna choose 4 points for this game because I know a lot of you guys, you know, like those simpler corner openings. So yeah, we're going with 4/4s, and my opponent chose the Sanrensei. So let's approach a corner. Pretty old and classic opening, so this will be a nice little example too. I think a lot of you guys out there might be playing this kind of opening. So okay, immediately here we can see a directional mistake. So if you're playing the Sanrensei opening, right, the 3-star opening, you don't want to block on this side because you're actually ruining your left side potential now. White's gonna crawl along like this, and yeah, all of the left side potential is just getting destroyed. So you should block on the other side and make a wall that's facing your potential territory. Okay, so black chose to Hane here, a little bit unusual, but it means that black is actually emphasizing the bottom territory very strongly. And so these 2 stones here, so this is how I think about this, okay? You could Hane here right away and make black connect, right? And that would be fine. But then, you know, after you extend, then black can immediately just start doing whatever they want, maybe even pincering your group. And I think that's fine anyway. But what I like to do is, you know, you see the 2 stones here, they have just 4 liberties. It means that in the future, if I were to, let's say, turn here and, you know, cut it down to 3 liberties, you know, all sorts of things can happen when your opponent's liberties are lower. So before I make this exchange, I want to extend first. And see what black does. If black plays in the corner and takes that away from me, which they did, you know, then that means that I have a lot more options out here because of how the liberties are not all connected yet. And still I have the extension all the way to here as well. So, you know, even if black took away the corner, I still have plenty of room to make a base anyway. So after I extend, you know, black normally would have just continued outside somewhere, and then still I would get to play that exchange in the corner. So I prefer that order. But anyway, this black move here looks like a pretty big mistake because actually there's 2 cutting points, right? And so you can cut one and then cut the other and, you know, cause a big problem. I'm going to show you guys why you shouldn't Hane like black did here and, you know, create all these cutting points. So I'm going to cut here. I'm going to show you what happens in this case. So we're going to be sacrificing this stone. And in this case, I'm actually going to extend. And if black still captures it, it's going to be a mistake. So black is still capturing this, right? I extended so that this is going to be only 1 eye. So now when I Atari on this side, black has to take off. I extend. So black only has 1 eye, as you can see. And yeah, so black kind of fell into like a trap of sorts, I guess. So black's trying to connect, but you know, in this case, we have plenty of liberties with both of our groups, so we can just disconnect that. But you know, even if we just played on this side and captured the outside and let black live, this would still be really good for white because black gets barely any points, and you know, we get the whole outside, and this 1 stone here, originally a pincer, would be just not doing very much, right? So we just extend our liberties. And eventually we can come back and capture this black group in the corner if we need to. So I'm just going to extend the liberties again. And one more time. Okay, so black is trying to steal us in, but this is going to be pretty tricky because we can, you know, create a defect here. And then there's a few things we can do. First of all, we could just go here and Atari and push again, and we're going to have more liberties than black. Another way you could do it is to Hane here first, and then if black blocks, you get to Atari here. And if black connects, then you break out, and if black blocks here, then you capture this one. So, you know, black has a lot of problems right now. And I don't even know which one I want to do because, you know, they're all so good. I'm going to play the second line Hane. I don't feel like giving black the extra stone on the outside because in the future, maybe we want to Hane there. So since black is trying to stop us, we're going to Atari here. And we're going to capture... Okay, so black connects. That means we can just break out. And that's fine. This capture doesn't actually help black at all. We don't even need to counter Atari here. It's not even big right now. We just do other things.
Yoyomi now starts.
So I'm going to attach on this stone over here. You know, I'm threatening this stone, but also the big group over here. So black is pushing here because black wants to cut, but we're not actually going to block because we're going to just threaten this side now. So we're just going to either jump or extend. I guess just extend in this case. So yeah, you know, we don't actually care about this one stone. We're just trying to see what black does. And we're still threatening both at the same time. So let's see what happens if we block. So if we block, black is going to cut here. And we're going to Atari. After we Atari, we need to make sure we can defend our cut here, but also seal black in, right?
3, 2, 1.
This is a good spot to spend your Yoyomi and just think because, you know,
Yoyomi's
the game could just end here right now. So yeah, if we block, cut, Atari, connect, black connects with Tiger's Mouth or Solid Connection, and we just, you know, Atari and cover it, or
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
I'm actually going to extend again, and, you know, we can still get this move and it'll still be really nice for this side. And if black pushes through, okay, so black defended there, so now we simply turn here. Black is still under threat on this side, but now also on this side. And now that we have blocked, black can't even really Atari on this side anymore. Black needs to actually just save these 3 stones. So black chose this Atari, but now we can just extend. And yeah, if black is not really careful, black's going to get captured. So what we can do here is we can actually Hane. If black tries to Atari here and then Atari this down, black's actually going to lose these 4 stones. So what I'm expecting black to do is just Hane here. Yeah, and now we can just solid connect. Black needs to still come out. And then we can just capture this one. If black insists on saving this one right now, then we just block here and this will all die. Because now we have plenty of liberties with these stones over here. So we can be a little bit more, we can play a little more strongly. Okay, black made the same mistake again. You see the 2 cuts here? It's the same thing that happened over here. So we're going to exploit that again. So, you know, these 4 stones are extremely important because they're cutting stones. Like, because of these 4 stones, black's able to cut with this 1 stone, right? But if these 4 stones die, then this 1 stone also becomes meaningless.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So we'll cut this side. You could also cut the other side. I'll talk about that later. So black is insisting on trying to live with this group, but we can just play ladder now. And we have Miai too. Like, if black plays down here, we can just capture this and vice versa. So black is doing this. We'll just take... Black's connecting under. It's kind of a miserable way to try to live at this point. And white can play almost anything now. It's almost game over. So what are we going to do? Are we going to connect or are we going to Atari? If we connect, black extends. And it's difficult to stop black from getting 1 eye.
6, 5, 4, 3.
We'll just Atari here. Black takes and we'll just defend. Let's say like this. And even if black ends up making life, we don't really care because we're getting everything on the outside. We're also going to keep attacking this other black group later. So black plays here, but black is not alive yet. In fact, if we play here, like, we can probably win the Liberty fight too. But how about we just keep things simple? So instead of trying to capture all this, which would probably work, but we'll just take this one stone. Now black has to make life. And then we can just attack this group. So we'll connect. Black is probably playing here. And white is 100% safe. Aside from this group, but this group can just run around, right? And we're probably going to end up capturing this this big group out here. Unless black exchanges this Hane right now, which might be a good idea. Okay, so black lives on the bottom, but now if we just play something out here, it looks like black might be getting captured. Yeah, so we're going to play here. If black tries to Hane, we have an Atari and then a ladder. And we don't even need to play ladder necessarily. So in this case, actually, to get more liberties for this stone and make sure that nothing bad happens to us out here with some cuts and liberty shortage, instead of blocking, we're going to extend. So if we extend, black pushes, black and Atari here, and then Atari here, and do that. Okay. I'm going to let one Byoyomi get wasted because, you know, this is like where the game ends. I'm basically just trying to make sure that we won't run out of liberties. If we keep extending. Okay, I found a pretty good solution actually. If we just keep extending, then we might not capture black, but it's going to be very difficult for black, and we're going to be able to keep attacking for a while. So if we Hane here, black pushes and we take, and black pushes again, and we Hane again. And yeah, it looks like black is still going to get captured. There's a few other moves around here that might work, like this one. But let's just play Hane. See, this is like one way that we can use the big wall that we have down here. So we take, black pushes again. Now that we have so many liberties on this side, and we played cautiously on this side, there's a lot of things we can do. We can even double Hane here. And we can also just extend again. This would work too. But in this case, let's just go ahead and double Hane and try to seal the deal. So I can show you guys later what I was a little bit afraid of over on this side and why I extended 2 more times over here. Okay, black cuts, so of course we also cut. Black is going to connect, and now, of course you can ladder here, right? But just double check what happens if black Atari's here first. So black Atari's then starts running out the ladder. And our ladder is actually broken after that. So you have to keep aware of that. But we don't actually have to ladder. We can actually net at that point. So I'm going to show you guys. Yep. So at this moment, we can actually just net. And now this Atari will not be relevant. I think black was waiting to see if we're going to play a ladder. Because if we played ladder here, then black was going to Atari here, and then it was going to make us have a broken ladder. So that was clever. Black trying to, you know, looking for a mistake. But now that we've come this far, it's pretty much resign time for black. So we'll just play here. Black is going to squirm. And we can just cut here. We can also connect here, actually. Well, no, we can't. If we connect here, black extends. And if we try to cut, then black has a ladder. So we have to play either the cut or the Hane here. Pretty much.
9, 8.
So let's just cut. Black can cut us back, but black doesn't have very many liberties. And we also have this ko. And yeah. Okay, so black plays here. Black is looking to ladder these 2 stones. So we can simply Yeah, we can simply push here again. Black might use this moment. Okay, black did not use this moment to cut. So now we can just fix our situation. So there's no immediate threat on these 3 white stones anymore. And so now we can just fix in whatever way. So I'm going to start with taking the ko. But if black tries to start fighting this ko, I'm fine with just connecting back. I don't really care too much about this ko. So that's fine. Black has some forcing moves here. I imagine black's going to take the ko back soon. And we don't really care. We're just going to connect. These inside black stones only have 5 liberties. So, you know, we don't really need to worry too much with white. Even though, like, we're not really connected perfectly over here. So yeah, it's pretty much game over now. Because the corner over here is dead, and the big group over here, the little dragon, is also dead. Black played this Atari here, but this was not Sente at all.
9, 8.
So yeah, black is trying to still, you know, make this a liberty fight. But doesn't really matter. I think we can just connect like this. If black goes down, we also go down.
7, 6.
Or
4, 3, 2. 1.
Should be fine. But if you're afraid of liberties, you could have just pushed on the second line. So I am taking a slight risk here because if black connects here and then we connect under, black can actually throw in and make a ko. But the thing about that ko is, you know, it's pretty tough for black because
9, 8.
white can just start taking black's liberties away anyway. All right, so do we play the ko or do we just extend? Or maybe we just take this ko. We can just take this ko and see what black does. I guess I wouldn't really recommend you guys playing this way because the game was pretty much already over. So just pushing on the second line this way and extending your liberties a bit would have been totally fine. White is still pretty ahead on liberties though, but yeah, if you wanted to just be extra safe and make sure you win the game, then yeah, just extending your liberties would have been enough.
4.
So now that black responded there, that's bad news for black because now I can actually just connect under. So now it really is game over. So black connected here, but I don't know what for because, you know, this wasn't even important anymore. So now we have a new target to attack. I feel a little bit sadistic now, attacking everything for the whole game, but let's just continue, I guess. So, you know, 2 directions. We can play on this side or play from here.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
This is the more aggressive move, so let's just go with this. It also builds some center anyway, so it's another place where we can make territory. At least in this case. But it would have been enough, especially in this case where you're just winning, to just play where black played and make black run this way and not really get any points. Especially because white is so strong out here, you're never going to be in danger over here. Okay, so first of all, let's block black from coming in the corner. So either with a kick or with maybe a move like this.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
I'm going to choose the kick here. Try to keep Sente. Okay, instead of going down, black went up in this case. So now we already have the corner and we can just block black off on this side. At this point, even if black manages to live, it's really good for white. So black can maybe peep here, yes, and play something on the edge. Okay, so if white really wants to capture black, white would want to play here. But we don't really care too much, do we? Let's just play elsewhere for now and we can decide later. So it looks really big to play something like this or maybe just close the corner.
9,
in this case,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
just play on the side. Either way is fine. If you just close the corner, that would have been a lot of points too. You could put it on the star point too, but I felt like taking a bit more because we have such a big wall over here. So black played inside, and now we try to attack this. So for starters, we can pincer. And then if black jumps up, then we can just go up as well. So black is playing along the side, and normally you would always want to hane here, and this might be good in this case too, but actually I'm looking at this territory here, and you know, in this case it's quite big, right? Quite big, so we're just gonna take that actually. In almost every other case, it's better to block on the side, but yeah, here, little bit different. So actually, instead of blocking here, I'm going to play this move because if you just block here, then when black plays hane here, you're going to lose a lot of territory and you can't really block black off easily.
9, 8.
So I'm going to play this one because now if black plays hane, we can just block, right? These cuts don't matter too much yet because black is not completely safe either. So for now, there's a few things we can do. You know, you could extend here. You could also descend over here or extend here. Let's play the cleanest looking move. You know, the best shape because we're pretty confident in this game, right? So we're gonna just extend here, and if black plays anything over here, we're gonna defend. And if black were to play hane and connect, we're gonna also defend. So here, yeah, we're just gonna fix our shape somehow. I guess we are playing this one. Now if black plays hane and connect, it's actually not finishing in sente anymore. And if black tries to live with these two stones, I mean, it seems like we can just capture everything at that point. Also, black has a really big weakness on this side now. So why don't you give it some thought, like, while I play over here, give it some thought, how can white make black like suffer really badly on this side? What is the best sequence? So think about that. Meanwhile, I'm going to play over here somewhere.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
There's still some potential for black to do things in our corner, so that's why I played a tight move over here. And now that I've already played this, I'm going to start playing a bit more aggressive. So like we can start cutting black off, for example. Although black's not really getting eyes here anyway, so we could just kind of swallow up the whole thing as well. But yeah, just to make things a little simpler
7, 6,
for white,
5.
I'm just going to cut. So now that we've cut, I guess I'll push up once on this side, give my stone some liberties. And black doesn't really have anywhere to go in this direction. So I think I'm just going to reinforce the sketchy looking shape I have over here. Otherwise, black might be able to make life with some sequence on the edge with attaching here, or maybe doing something in the corner because of the bad shape we have around here. So I'm going to just reinforce like this. Now these two stones are totally captured, and we just have to deal with this other group. So black is pushing here. So we just need to block black from escaping. In this case, even just playing hane is totally fine. Normally when you're attacking, and especially trying to kill a group, hane is not always the best choice, because when you play hane, usually they get to hane back in sente, and that helps them build some shape, right? So in most cases, I would have recommended not to hane, but in this case, hane blocks black pretty well and also helps this shape up here become healthier. And I can't imagine black making two eyes in the tiny space over here. So that's why I went ahead with the hane, because I didn't really care that black gets to also hane, because even if black can make tiger's mouth or whatever, there's just not going to be two eyes over here. So in this case, I'm going to keep up our good shape by extending again instead of playing Hane. That way we don't get a liberty shortage with the 2 stones here. And I think I'll just extend again because, you know, I don't really have to block until the last minute. So now I'll block here. Yep, so now that black cut, you know, first of all, we just want to make extra sure that this group is nice and alive, right? This top group. So what I think I'll do here is Atari once first, get a bit more space here. Now I'll save the 1 stone like this. And now we can even just play simply, right? Like just extend and you're quite alive over here. One other thing we could do is actually attack this group now. And double Hane is the way to go over here. If you double Hane, black has really big problems. Because if you double Hane and then black Ataris and takes this 1 stone, you can counter Atari on this side and capture all of these. But I'm just going to extend because now we're nice and alive over here. And just let black deal with their own problems. And meanwhile, you can capture the whole center. So here we will just respond. There's no way to turn this thing into 1 eye. And black is trying to take our liberties away. So we're just going to break through and keep up some cutting points in black's shape. Black does have a cut here that you have to respond to save these 3 stones. And because black can do that in Sente, you have to assume that there's no liberty here for these stones. Because this can always happen. And that means that, like, for example, black's next move here is going to be Atari. So that means, you know, if you're going to go here, just keep in mind that next move you're going to get Atari'd. So it's better actually if we can find a way to break through. So I'm going to actually Atari here. And then Atari here. And then break in on this side. That way, black doesn't have any time to play with our liberties. So now we just break in here and destroy some territory. We helped black a bit on this side, but it seems worth it. And over here, yeah, we can just block here. Black has to reinforce. And then we just do whatever we want. We don't even need to continue here anymore because, like, for example, if you want to make sure that this group is dead and you're not confident, then just add a move, right? So I think that's what we'll do here to make sure the game is just won. What we'll do here is play this to make sure that that's going to be always a false eye. It is big to play in the corner over here, but we know that we won the game already. So yeah, we can just make sure that this black group gets captured. So now that black played this one, it's not a very good move because now we can just peep here and break black's shape even more. This Atari doesn't really quite yet do anything for black. So basically we can just keep playing like safety moves. So, you know, I just want to show you guys how to make sure that your one game is actually won. So we don't have any weaknesses anywhere. Except for, like, you know, this part. If you just protect this cut now, it makes it like extra clear that this thing is not going to make 2 eyes and neither are these 2 stones. You could get into trouble. For example, if you played this jump here and then black pushed and then cut here, you might run into trouble because after you save these and black extends, you have to save these and then black would get to Atari down and do a bunch of things. And so black would be able to do something with these 2 stones. So playing here just takes away black's hope, basically. So now black finally lives with this group. We could have gone for the capture, but, you know, we don't really need to. And we can play this ko if we want, assuming that black turns it into a ko. But we don't really need to as well. Now black is threatening to connect with this move. So we should play something. So we'll do the Atari. You know, just to make sure that these 2 stones are dead, and we'll see if black wants to play ko. The thing about this ko is that white doesn't really care about this ko, so white could even just back off and connect if white's going to lose the ko. But at the same time, if white wins the ko, then this entire thing here would probably die, right? So, okay, so black backed off first, and now we're going to play here. We get some points, and we stop black from making more eyes. And yeah, black is, you know, we can actually go for the kill here too, because this move here assumes that white's going to block here, right? But actually, we could just take away the 2 eyes now. If you just play here, if you simply play here, black can't make 2 eyes. I'm just going to block because I just want to like keep everything simple, and I don't really mind if he lives, right? Because we already won the game. But I just want to show you guys that, you know, we're so strong out here that it doesn't matter if black breaks out. Black is still going to be contained into this little area right here. And what we could have done is played right here to reduce the space. And no matter what black plays, there's no way to get 2 eyes. So black's Atariing here. We just respond. Just keep responding to everything. You could block here, but this is actually a slightly better shape to extend like this. You don't get the M2 triangle. And you get more liberties. If you actually just blocked directly, then black could actually peep at the 3-3 point, and there might be something black could do. But because you just extend, now, you know, it's a lot more solid. So that's actually a shape thing that you guys should try hard to remember. If you just extend down, you know, you're taking away black's hope, because like the best black can get at that point is a second line peep.
3, 2, 1.
And the second line peep is not really going to get 2 eyes. So now we're just taking the corner points here. And now, you know, if you want to make extra sure that you're alive, this is alive, right? But if you have any doubts about that, you can simply make sure that you have 1 or more eyes over here. Black actually has a clamp left here if you don't play anything, and you would have to connect here, and black would get to connect under. So instead of playing the first line Hane, black can actually clamp.
7,
And so we're going to play here
6.
to take the clamp away and also get some reduction. So black chose to not Atari for some reason, so we're just gonna keep going. Yeah, for some reason black is allowing us to reduce by 2 more points. But yeah, now this is like completely solid corner territory, and so you have 2 different bases basically. Super alive. So now white has absolutely no problems left, and since black hasn't resigned yet, we're just gonna play some endgame moves. Actually, black has neglected to make this alive, right? So, okay. I'm actually going to give black a chance to live by not doing it yet. I'm going to just play some endgame.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Actually, this is our Sente. We might as well take this one. Because there's a nasty follow-up. And then we'll just connect here. If black doesn't make this alive, then we're going to go and capture it. Okay, black is trying to get a second eye, I guess, because black has an eye here. So I don't know. I mean, we don't really need to even play anything, but let's just put a move here. Make sure that black is captured, and yeah, just keep making sure, I guess. So it's pretty big. It's gonna get big soon to Atari here. Okay, black plays here. Of course, we break this eye. And, you know, now if black plays here, it is Sente. Because if black Ataris and we connect... Oh, it's not Sente because we still have a Liberty here. Okay, so black plays here. We need to check inside. So if black cuts here, how do we respond? Seems like we're okay. Because you can just do a solid connect. If you Atari, it's a big mistake because then black can Atari here. And you have a Liberty shortage.
8.
So just to take away black's hope, because this is all dead, right? So it doesn't really matter. We don't really lose points by responding to it. So especially like as an example to like for everyone watching, because, you know, people make mistakes, right? Sometimes you want to play confident and believe in your reading and all that, and like just think, oh, we don't need to respond here, right? But sometimes like you make mistakes.
7,
And, you know, the game's already over, so
4, 3,
you might as well just fix.
1.
Okay, so black resigned. Yeah, so let's do a little review now. All right, so in the first game, the one that was unfinished because the person left and never came back, we played double 3-4 and so did white. Now the thing about white's position, okay, is that white played a 3-4 point that is facing ours. And I'll give you a little rule of thumb for that kind of situation. It's usually when you have 2, 3, 4 points of opposite colors facing each other, the first person to approach the other gets kind of like bonus value. Like it's a really big place to play because the side that they create together is like wider than usual. There's more empty space, right? Usually we have like this much empty space or even less. Like if they put 2, 4, 4 points, right? Like white here and black here, then you know, you just get how many, like 3, 5, 6, like 11 spaces in between. But here, there's like 2 extra spaces. So, you know, the left side is extra valuable in this case. And so my rule of thumb to you is, yeah, always approach the opponent in that situation, like this move here. So in the real game, white played this kick move, and this can be fine sometimes. So black extends, and normally white should add a move here. But in the real game, white extended down. The problem with extending down in this case is that, you know, the corner is pretty small, and I mean, black is not necessarily going to respond to this because, you know, second line moves, they don't have any influence. And so if they're also not forcing moves in any way either, and they don't really have a big follow-up, then there isn't too much reason to even respond to them at this point in the opening. You know, I mean, even if black blocks, it's not like there's any territory on the left side anyway. And if white just responds now to avoid getting squeezed in, black has to extend now to, you know, make a base for this group that black has invested 3 stones into already. And it's not like black gets that many points anyway. And white gets more, and now white gets Sente too, and white can just play something big. You know, it'd be the same even if you extend a little farther. This is fine. It's just that, you know, you don't really need to play the move at 1. It's a little too defensive. Like, you already got some good exchanges here by gaining some influence with these stones and making white crawl onto the second line. And in the future, there are so many things you can do. You can sacrifice the stones and make white over-invest in attacking them. You can still extend. You can also squeeze white in with moves like this. And yeah, there's a lot of things you can do in the future, but just leave it alone. Focus on playing in the empty areas. So, you know, playing something a little farther along the side would be better because at least then you're kind of helping the 2 stones, but you're also, you know, developing this corner and also kind of the top too. And like, let's just say you play here, like around here somewhere. Yeah, you don't really have any territory yet, but then in the future you can still block. And if white continues now, you know, maybe you respond, but you could also consider just playing elsewhere and just, you know, play really fast. And you just let white keep playing moves on the second line. So in the real game, I chose to just play all the way over here and emphasize the corner. And, you know, white chose to attack, but white attacked from a really close distance. And so this made it even easier for me to just sacrifice these because, you know, even if I play elsewhere, what's white going to do, right? White can jump. White can, you know, play moves like this, but how many points is white really getting on each move, right? When white plays these, and still it's not completely captured. So plus black can interrupt the sequence at any point, right? Yeah, so if white played a pincer from a little bit farther away, at least then it might incite me into action. It might make black need to respond. You know, maybe I jump, but yeah, in this case, when white played such a close pincer and already white has the second line stone, which like already devalues my stones because, you know, if I were to extend and make some territory, then it's already leaking under here, right? White can already reduce this, just like jumping in here, maybe invading here. So as soon as white played that move on the second line, I already cared less about these stones because it's harder for these stones to make territory. So white kind of preemptively erased my territory before it even comes into existence. So in that case, why should black even bother making it, right? Instead, black can just treat this as a bit of influence and just play elsewhere. Like approaching here, or like in the game playing here or something else along the side, but like farther away. Or even over here too. So I played here, white played here, and I don't really care about white attacking these, so I just play elsewhere again. And white actually did the same thing again. So this time, because I do want to develop along more than one side, I don't just want to make the top. I would like to have more of a two-dimensional framework. So I did respond on this side. But as you can see, I don't really care about the territory here. You know, if white invades, I can just sacrifice like this. If white wants to go back, then I can just let white get a few points here, not much, and I get a lot stronger too. And if white pushes along, I can just hane and make some influence like this. And it's totally fine. White only has like 5 points here and still not connected. And so if white invests another move like this, then we can just play, you know, something around here. And just keep making new territories and big potentials and just stay flexible, you know? If you look at the whole board, how many points does white have? White has at most around 7, 10, so maybe around 20 at most around here. And then here's another 10. So just 30 points. Just 30 points and Komi around like less than 40 points. And how about black, right? Black has more than 10 in this corner. Probably some points in this corner too. Probably a whole bunch on the top, right? Either on this side or on the other side or both, depending on where white invades. So as soon as white invades one of these areas, you're going to attack it and the other area is probably going to get solidified from the attack, right? So black pretty much has one of these chunks of territory as well. Not to mention the big wall in the center. And because black is so strong in the center, black's going to have a lot of control over the flow of the game as well. Sooner or later, white's going to have to start invading and black is going to get to attack and kind of bully white's groups. And at this moment, white disconnected and never returned. So on to the next game. All right, so in the second game, I played black again. And because white chose to put the 3-4 point here instead of here, I got a pretty natural looking approach move over here. So I chose to approach. Black could also just close the corner over here. This would be completely normal and fine. And in fact, black might have time to do both in that case, because after black closes the corner over here, white probably approaches this corner. So black might still have time to play here. But I chose to just play here first in this case for a change. Either way, you're approaching or enclosing a 3-4 point, it's going to be a big move. White kicked just like the other player, but this time white actually finished off in the correct way and avoided getting squeezed in as I can if white ignores. If white doesn't extend here at the end, then like play something else, then black can squeeze like this and get something like that. So white gets flattened out and, you know, only like 10 points in the corner, and black gets some really strong thickness. So black doesn't have to do it right away, but it would be there. And another option black would have even is to pincer from here. And this will be a little more aggressive. It allows white to potentially come out, but it's actually attacking white's kind of entire eye space. There's also some potential Tetsuji moves black can actually play inside now, since there's ways to connect to here or here. Like, for example, placing a stone here might work sometimes. And if white comes out like this, then when the time is right, black can actually cause a problem by playing here, forcing white to decide which group to save. So, you know, a lot of issues can come up when white doesn't add a stone here. So white played this correctly, and going back to the game, I extended like this. Playing on the fourth line here, you could play third line too, but the fourth line increases the moyo potential both for this side as well as this entire potential framework as a whole, the top and the right. And white approach like this, and then I just attach under and take the territory. This is actually considered to be locally the best way for black to play, especially in the age of AI, where they kind of verify this for us. So if you don't know what to play when they approach you high like this against your 3-4 point, attaching under to take the corner points is kind of a good default. You get a really big corner, and locally you get more than white does. So you can also choose to play something like this, especially if you want to create more of a high-low balance. And if you're trying to set up for like maybe you know, a nice looking pincer, you get a high stone into a low pincer. It's kind of a nice combo. But you know, this one can have its own weaknesses too. Like when white starts playing nearby, like around here, or sometimes even here, it can be pretty annoying to black's shape sometimes. So real game, white plays here, and there's a few things black can do here. One thing is to simply enclose the corner in some way over here. This would take corner points while also building up both the right and the top. And this would be totally fine. And you don't have to put it here. This is kind of the AI style, emphasizing a bit more of influence and potential. But, you know, you could also place it here, or even the small knight's move if you prefer. And playing it here would probably be good too. It doesn't really matter. They're all pretty good. They have their different pros and cons, but you know, that's kind of a topic for another video. Feel free to request that if you're interested in the comments below. Yeah, so you can also approach here, and you know, this would allow white to still make some points on the left side, but it would limit the moyo potential of white to just one side, and also develop a position on the bottom that yeah, basically prevents white from getting a two-dimensional framework and just keeping everything nice and divided. I like games that are a little bit more on the complicated side and where there's a lot of groups for both players or either player, so I chose this over the 3-3 invasion, but this seems playable too. So you play this, white probably blocks on this side because it's going to be a lot easier to build and maintain territory on the left side rather than the bottom. And the bottom has these low stones over here, and you know, it's hard for black to make territory on the bottom, and it's also not so interesting for white either, because not only are there going to be a lot of invasion points on the bottom if white builds there, but also this is already low. And if white wanted to build on the bottom, it would have been nice if this were like a high stone, a little bit more of an enterprising move. So this is a pretty modest position over here and just crawling along the third line. So it makes a lot of sense to block on this side where you just placed this fourth line side star point. And yeah, there's a lot of potential here. So black would crawl, and at this point, white would either extend and black would play here, or maybe Hane, and something like this can be expected. And then black can take Sente. I decided not to play this way simply because I didn't want to have to think about or deal with, you know, how to keep the size of this moyo under control. And if I started to build my own moyo after this, it might be fine. But, you know, one thing that comes into question is if I start building as well, and we're both building moyos, right? White is actually one move ahead on building the moyos. So if I started building on the top, white could be the first one who starts to expand into the center. You know, even if white just played on the center star point, for example, the Tengen, even if white just played Tengen soon, you know, white would be kind of getting one up on me when it comes to getting the center. And so I'm behind white when it comes to building moyo. So I'd rather just keep this into like a low scoring game with small territories. Ultimately, I think any of those moves would have been good. Approaching here, or playing the 3-3 invasion, or closing a corner up here. All of those are good. So in the real game, I approached, and white chose to kick again. But instead of reinforcing with something like this, and then I would just extend around here, or maybe play high, actually. I think I would play high here, because in the future, not only do I have a move here to expand it and finish it off, but I can also block off the center like this, and this could be nice depending on how the game develops from here. If I get any potential in the center, then, you know, a move like this could be pretty good. It's just another option or like potential to leave for myself. And if I play high here and, you know, white does something like this to undercut me, I'm not going to respond to that because it's pretty slow. I'm already relatively settled here. And at that point, I can just play something over here and develop much more quickly than white. I can still invade around here as well as the 3-3 point here. So white doesn't actually have that much solid territory, and it seems like black would be moving a lot faster. And still in the future, I can defend the territory here if I want to, but right now it would just be kind of slow. For example, if I play here, and if white moves in like this, I would just ignore again. And, you know, maybe I can just start blocking off this side. You know, or I just find another big move somewhere else. Maybe I play here. Or maybe I invade white's area. Either way. And if white invades like this, same thing. White would get a little bit more territory this way, but I would also get stronger too. Doesn't really matter. If you look, it feels like you're losing a lot of territory, right? But actually, white had to invest multiple moves just to do that. And you never really claimed your territory in the first place because you put it on the 4th line, right? So, even if white invades here, keep in mind that, there's only like 5 points, maybe 7 points gained here for white. Maybe less depending on the endgame that happens around here when black descends and whatnot. So white's gain is actually very small. It's really just erasing black's potential, but black never even claimed that territory to begin with. It's perfectly nice to just extend here and get your actual territory, but just keep in mind that your future follow-ups are not as interesting. For example, a bunch more moves are played and then later on you play here. This would be the most normal way to expand your territory in this position. And it's just like a 3rd line stone with another 3rd line extension really close to it, a little bit over concentrated. So obviously, if you were going to get this final move, it would have been nicer if you had 4th line and then you played down onto the 3rd line and your total territory would be bigger, right? So that's kind of the thinking too, is like not just focusing all the time on your secure territory, but also on your potential territory and the threats of making territory that you're setting up on the board. It pressures your opponent better too. In the real game, white chose to pincer directly instead of defending. It's not such a good move because black can pretty much ruin the potential of the left side now. And furthermore, after black gets strong from doing the sequence over here, the pincer is not going to be attacking anymore, so it's just going to be in a strange place. So, for example, if you do this my way, where you extend once and then you cut, white needs to not Atari on this side because this is going to get white captured. So, white instead captures by Atarying the other way. But now black can get a 4C move here, and also here, and then just connect. And sure, black doesn't have any territory, but black is really strong, and white only has something like, 13, 14 points in the corner. What is this? 8, 9, 13 points. And yeah, black is quite strong, and that means that not only is this territory also negatively affected, but also the stone here is kind of misplaced. Like there's an invasion point here, and it's just kind of awkward now for white to try to turn this into points. And it's no longer attacking, so like this stone really should be just somewhere else now, like on the 3rd line maybe, or just approaching this corner. So I don't usually recommend pincering the opponent unless you're already solid on this side. If white already had a stone around here or here, then this would make a lot of sense actually. But yeah, white didn't have a stone there, so. And regarding the cut, you can see that if I just play like this and then I force here and make white connect, I don't have any more forcing moves. So after I extend here, white still has the option to just connect and get all the territory. Or just Tanuki, of course, play elsewhere. But if you do it my way, then you can cut. And you still get the same forcing move you had before, making white connect here. But now, because of these exchanges from before, you don't lose any points because you die with these stones, but white also gets -1 for each of these stones, right? But on top of that, now you have a forcing move here, and then now you just connect. So yeah, that's one example of how you can get quite a lot of value off of sacrificing a couple of stones. There's a proverb I know of that says to sacrifice 2 stones instead of 1. So, even if we just cut first, but if we sacrifice now right away, then we might not get as much value out of this stone, because now, like, if we Hane here, white might still take and that might be fine, but now we don't have Sente with this move. On top of that, white might be able to just cut right now, or even in some cases maybe Hane. And so white has more options, and even just capturing, this is already better for white than the other way, where we make our sacrifice 1 stone bigger, and now all of these moves are forcing. So in the real game, I do just that, but white actually neglects to continue in the corner and actually just pincers again. And so this is a big mistake, because now when we cut, it's very dangerous for white. Now, this next part's actually really interesting. I didn't have time to show you guys properly in the real game, but white actually has something interesting they can do here, and this is another good one for you guys to remember. So after this, if white actually just Hanes in the corner here, okay? It seems like white is kind of self-destructing like this, but actually if white connects, Black has to Atari on this side. And if white extends, makes the sacrifice 1 stone bigger. Now white can Atari here. Black has to take. And if white throws in here, black can't connect because black would get captured. So black has to take. And now if white just connects here, white can actually win the liberty fight. Because now if black plays here, it's 3 liberties against 3 liberties and white plays first. So black gets captured. And if black plays here, same thing, white just Ataris. So all black can do here now is actually just connect like this. And white plays the Atari. And yeah, black just plays elsewhere now, or maybe plays here. Now you could say this is a success for black though, because black actually erased all the corner and got a lot stronger. And still these pincers are not really attacking black too much. And white's territory in the corner is extremely small. The nice thing here is that black is also going to get an Atari over here whenever black needs. That means that there's no cut here. So black's actually already really strong here and the whole corner is destroyed. And so white can still connect up and save this group. But you can see that white basically got no territory. And black didn't get that much territory either, but black is safe now. Relatively safe anyway, and also destroyed the entire corner. So this would still be a pretty good result for black, actually. But I just wanted to make you guys aware of this Tsuji sequence. So basically, white plays this Hane in the corner, and it looks like white is getting destroyed here, but actually you use the proverb of sacrificing 2 stones instead of 1. And then you Atari, you throw in to reduce the liberties, and then you just play out the liberty fight normally. And so that sequence basically, that's usually called the tombstone Tsuji because you make black end up with this really bulky shape here. So it's a really cool sequence actually to remember. Although in this case, black still gets a better result because black was under attack and black actually manages to destroy all of white's corner territory. Ultimately though, the 3 stones white captured were a really small price. White just connects back with no territory to show for it. And these stones here that were supposed to be attacking black are actually just not doing too much now except for getting a few points because black's actually pretty solid now. There's no cut here thanks to this Atari, and black has at least 1 eye as well. So even if black just continues here and takes Gote, it's a pretty good result for black actually. In the real game though, white just gave up on the corner situation and extended. So black was able to just play Atari and capture everything. In a Dan level game, this would be pretty much game over. But, you know, for most levels, white can still play, but black's definitely winning at this point. So these are just captured. And white approaches here, but this is not usually recommended because, you know, after black just plays the vital point of the 3-3 to get a bunch of points in base, white is also left here with just 3 liberties. And so it's kind of awkward figuring out how to defend with white. If you just push up, then because you're behind black by 1 move and short on liberties, this Hane is very powerful and black definitely gets a better result here. And if you try to just lightly extend away, then you didn't really gain anything from this exchange and black can just play like here or whatever to, you know, make it so that that stone doesn't get anything. Or even just ignore, maybe even attack the whole thing like this. If white just reinforces the stone directly, then it doesn't make sense because now, you know, white's defending a territory that doesn't exist and black can just attack everything. So, you know, white doesn't really have anything to gain from this. So ultimately, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to come this close. It's better to play farther away. That way, if black still blocks the corner, you still have all your liberties intact, so you can just extend and you'll be fine. And if black attaches to you, at least this time when you extend up, black needs to reinforce this part in some way, and then you have time to extend. And just like what we saw at the bottom here, if black tries to just pincer you, then you can just squeeze this side and get stronger. And this will be a really bad result for black actually, because black was always going to get the corner anyway. And so the extra crawling for like 2 or 3 more points here that black got is quite negligible, and it's a lot worse than what white's getting here. So you don't really need to feel like black's getting all the points. Black already had all those points, and you got a lot stronger here. And now all the potential of the position over here is pretty much ruined. There's no more synergy between the black groups. There's no more Moyo potential. And this stone here is kind of misplaced now. Black pretty much has to add a move to keep it connected now. And still white can leak in from the bottom in various ways now. So like this, or even just like this in the future. And it's pretty inefficient for black. So in the real game, white chose to Hane. And you could think about cutting here, but you have your own problems too. And so it takes some complicated reading. And so you can just avoid that even just by extending, because this is quite good for black too. White still has a weakness here, and on top of it, no territory yet. Meanwhile, black is getting a whole bunch of points on the side. So in the real game, white extended directly. And if I just cut, white can save the 2 stones like this. This is still pretty good for black, it seems, but you know, white still gets some territory and safety this way. So it'd be a lot better if we make things harder for white. So instead of cutting, we can actually attack the shape point here. And the reason this is a shape point is because, like, if white plays like they did in the game and connects with a tiger's mouth, now this stone is in the perfect position to connect under like this. And thanks to the liberty shortage of these 2 stones, which I've been emphasizing from the start, white cannot disconnect because black can just Atari and take like this. And if white connects solidly, then this connection under doesn't really work anymore for black, because now this cut is not Atari, so white can just take. However, instead of that, black can just start running out in some fashion, like here, maybe like this. And these 2 groups are totally cut now. And so black is not only erasing white's potential after already getting some points here, but also attacking 2 weak groups now. So yeah, black can just continue either with this one or maybe like this. And you know, even if white pushes and cuts here, at this point, black is happy to sacrifice 1 stone because now the other group gets damaged, and still white only gets a really small territory here. And black gets a big outside, as well as destroying white's potential here and damaging the 1 stone. So this will be a terrible result for white as well. So real game, black just connects up, and because white played Hane, even though white already seems like they're not getting much, black is actually able to make it even worse here for white by cutting, because this group just has such a liberty shortage, especially if the Atari is exchanged. So this cut makes things really hard for white, and works pretty well because of white's dumpling type shape here, where, you know, if you Atari and white were to connect, then white basically has a dumpling here. Basically like a blob. So yeah, that's why black's able to safely cut here. But black doesn't need to cut. So if you just wanted to keep things simple, okay, you can just play elsewhere, or even just you know, you could Atari here and just Hane. This would still be really great for black and really awkward for white. You know, white extends, black pushes again. White is short of liberties, so probably wants to extend again. And still, white doesn't really have any points. Black got some points on the top, and black could just push here and threaten to Atari there and, you know, do a squeeze or a ladder. So white needs to reinforce, and then, you know, still white got nothing, and black is building this. At this point, the game is so easy for black that black could even just add a move here and be done with it. So real game, I cut, and this happened. Now, I have to respond to save the stone now. If I just Atari here, the issue with that is that white can actually just play here, and I don't really have any way to capture the 2 stones here. In fact, white can actually capture black like this. Black can take, but white just connects. So what I had to do here actually was defend in this way to take away a liberty. That way, if white plays here again, and this time we bump once, and then attach here. And there's nothing white can do about this now. These 2 stones are captured. So yeah, white can do a forcing move such as this, but after that, white probably just needs to connect in some way. And black again can get sente. Real game, white saves the top. And now black pushes out, and white has 2 weak groups and black has 1 weak group. So what white should have done is actually just extend again. And then black would either keep pushing or just jump this way. And this would be another game. But black has the advantage here because white has 2 weak groups to deal with. So in the real game, I wedged in here to make 2 cutting points. White played this, but this did not really defend against this cut. So in the real game, I still cut. I just pushed down kind of bluntly like this because if I extended here, I didn't like that at some point there's this weakness here left over. It might have been still better for me to play this, but I was pretty comfortable with the game anyway, so I just chose to play this kind of blunt pushing move. And, you know, just make sure that we keep white inside and we don't have any disconnect issues with my stones. Keep them, you know, maximum 1 line apart. I expected white to actually turn here and reduce my liberties down. That way, even if I hane, white gets another forcing move here, which threatens double Atari. And then if I extend, then white can do something like attaching here. And, you know, probably going to get another eye on the side. If I wedge like this, then white can continue by just extending all the way to here. And if I play on this side somewhere, then this is sente because it threatens to capture these 2 by playing here. And if black defends, then white can just make 1 eye like this. In the real game, white played this knight's move, but I don't think it was the best shape choice because at any time, black can play here and force white into this kind of eyeless shape. But of course, before I do that, I chose to fix up my shape over here first. Make sure that I'm not going to have a problem here. So after this, white actually kept going in this direction. And so, you know, first I looked, okay, if I go here and I break white's shape, white has to go here. And, you know, I pretty much have to either play on this side or play here or something like this to take away white's eye shape. But, you know, it looked like white was probably going to get an eye on the side anyway. So I chose to just make a trade. You know, white already invested 2 moves here. And I decided that I would get a pretty big territory here if I just cut everything off. And so it seems like sacrificing the stones here was a small price to pay. So, you know, I just gave them up like this. And just to make sure that there isn't too much funny business in my corner, I chose to connect under. Connecting under is normally a bit small at this time, but you know, it did give me some corner safety, and it is actually a fair number of points because in the future, white could have sente here, which increases the agi inside a little bit, but also even just in terms of endgame, you know, white would get a decent reduction here, and this would also affect the eye space and the points in my corner as well. So, especially because I was feeling very comfortable and confident with the game. So connecting here felt good because, you know, it's good for the endgame points, but it also connects up all my groups, which gives me more points, more security with the corner, and also security with the side over here. If you look at the board now, black has the big corner here, nice corner over here as well, and also here. Not to mention this huge side territory, which is pretty much almost solid now. And white only has like this corner here, a bit of points here, which actually can still be invaded, and then a decent chunk here. But other than that, you know, this territory here is really small. And then the top here can actually be attacked by black. So black's going to gain even more from that. And black also has some potential in the center compared to white. So black is leading by quite a big margin already. So it's fine to just play a move like this and stay safe and stay solid. White chose to immediately start trying to move with this group. And it was a decent attempt. So now this is a Tetsuji that you guys should try to remember. You know, sacrifice 1 stone in order to, you know, force them to capture it and, you know, get moves like this or this one and lock them in. I didn't choose this one because if I play like this and then block, white can go here and immediately have 2 eyes, right? This would still be pretty good for black, to be honest, because black is still really solid in the center and the territory in the corner is like somewhat ruined. And now if black were to, for example, like invade here and survive, or even attach here and then hane, like if black plays here, white plays here, black plays here, you know, this is a technique because if white Ataris and takes, then you can actually counter Atari on this side and then break out over here. And, you know, also if white connects on this side now, then you can capture like this And, you know, this would be a pretty good result for black locally. And you can see a moyo developing here too. Not to mention, you know, the corner is leaking here pretty badly too. So that's a result of white making the exchange over here earlier. So going back, when white plays here, white loses a lot of points in the corner. This is a really big loss for the corner. So as soon as this exchange is made, it almost doesn't even matter if white manages to live in here. Like black doesn't really care anymore. So we got this happening, and I went here to make sure it's a false eye, because if white comes out, then we can just capture these two and, you know, everything is captured. So white had to take, and then we Atari. Now, white could have lived here because if white plays here and we break the eye over here, then white can play here and there's going to be another eye here. So white could have survived. And I was okay with this because, you know, we can destroy this territory and we can attack this group here. So that's why it didn't really matter, and white could just live here and black would still be better. But white chose to connect the ko. And I guess white was thinking that I was going to fix. But even if I was going to fix, that's not an exchange you should want, because when you connect the ko, you just get 1 point by saving the capture stone. And black gets more outside stones, and this is obviously going to be worth more than 1 point for black. So it's a bad exchange. So white definitely still should have lived like this, but ultimately it's still a better result for black. In the real game, white connected, so I'm just thinking, okay, well, I mean, we might as well capture this group. But I was tempted to just not capture it and, you know, just play some solid things. It doesn't really matter. Like maybe play here, make sure there's no cut there. Or, you know, potentially even just play something over here directly. Because even if, as we see in the game, even if white cuts, you can still peep here at that moment. So in the real game, white cut, and then I just peep here. And this is threatening to push in and cut on either side. So if white plays something like this, we can just push and cut. If white takes this stone, then we Atari and make off with the corner, basically. So that would be a very bad result for white. And if white connects on this side, then at least now there's things we can do with this stone. For example, even if the ladder is not working for us, you know, we can always at least play something like this. And, you know, if white saves the 1 stone, then we can just play again over here and start trying to capture white. I think what I would have recommended is to just peep here and save yourself any potential complications. If white defends, then you can just go capture this. And, you know, if white doesn't and makes this alive, then, you know, now it's pretty clear that, you know, if white saves the corner, actually the corner is not even saved because still there's this jumping in move. And so you can just check the ladder. Even if you don't have the ladder, it's still fine because first of all, you might be able to fight by just extending here like this. If you can get out or get enough liberties, then, you know, you can start trying to capture this entire corner. And another thing you can think is like maybe you're going to just play Foxy move around here to try to get the ladder to work. Or maybe you're just going to play something indirect that is threatening the ladder, but also threatening the stones over here. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways that you can figure out how to use the 1 stone here. If white defends against it, then at least you can play something like this. And, you know, you can get this kind of sequence going. And white would have to play here. And then you just do something like jumping, and now you have a new target to attack. Not to mention destroying the bottom territory. So real game, it just went nice and smooth for black. I got to capture here. I played this Foxy move here to defend against my potential cut problem over here. So if I didn't play that, and I just play like whatever, then if white cuts here and black takes, white could then Atari here and capture 2 stones. And the reason this is big is because that would actually make these white stones alive. And these are some stones that I wanted to attack later. So that's why this is big, not because of the few points here, but it's because it makes this group alive. It still wouldn't be a very big deal for black because black would get Sente and still be really solid on the board and still be winning. By a lot, actually, but still, if we can prevent it, then why not? And so since white didn't play it first, I was actually able to fix it in Sente, because when I play here, it gets rid of that entire problem. And, you know, if white plays elsewhere, then you can just Atari here, and white can't save both and get the 2 eyes. So real game, we peep here, see how white responds. If white just makes alive like this, then, you know, at least we'll get some really big profit over here. So that'd be a really nice exchange for us. And then even then, we can still try to attack white. Like if we push here and peep, white still has to connect this. And at that point, we can actually connect back like this. Or you can start with this move. And if white tries to resist, then this move here basically makes white's position crumble. White needs to block you, and then you can just Atari like this. So unfortunately for white, even if white plays here, the shape is still unsettled because there's a really big problem inside. So I chose to attack the 2 stones first, and white should probably just let them go at this point and yeah, just try to make this area safer somehow. But white's just trying to save everything, so we can just attack everything. These exchanges were not helpful for white, and after this, white's just saving these 2 stones, which weren't really doing anything to begin with. And, you know, there's no eye space here. So, I mean, I wasn't originally going to try to capture everything here, but, you know, sometimes they kind of force your hand, right? So, yeah, we just push and peep, and there's really no way for white to play now. So that's kind of the end of that, and the game ended there. If white connected this, then we can just play, you know, something around here and probably capture this group. We don't need to capture it, but we probably can. The only thing you need to concern yourself with at this point as black is just make your group out here extra solid. That way you can never end up in a liberty fight with the top group. So, you know, even if you just play something like this, it's going to be enough. All right, so now for the third game. So I chose to play 2 4-4 points this time just to keep it simple and play a little different this time for the opening. And the opponent chose the 3-star opening. So normally we just approach one of the corners now, unless we're going to do our own 3-star opening, but that's not really how I usually play. So black chose to pincer, so naturally we jump in the corner, which is generally recommended here. And what black should do here is build up the left side that black has started investing in by making a wall facing the left side. So white will connect back like this. Black will play here, which actually is peeping, threatening to push and cut, and also building up the wall and preventing white from playing a tiger's mouth here, which would pretty much bust out into the center with good shape and also take away the liberties of these 2 stones here and, you know, pretty much ruin black's position. It would also make the 1 stone over here pretty like misplaced. And so by playing here, first of all, you force white to fix the push and cut problem due to white's liberties. And so if white just protects, then you can just block off. Now at least the wall that you've made is building territory over here and pretty much linking up with the stone over here too. So this would be pretty normal. A more common continuation though for this joseki is actually to defend indirectly like this for white. So this gives white more potential eye space on the edge rather than just fixing directly and, you know, only protecting what's already there. There is one other positive virtue of this white move, which is actually it takes a liberty away from black's wall. That's why usually instead of playing the double knights move now to seal white off, because black's liberties are shorter in this case and there's more bad stuff that can happen to black inside of here if white invades, black usually extends like this to maximize liberties of this wall. On the other hand, if white actually responds in this other way, this is the more common joseki variation by the way, then black usually plays the double knights move because it's faster and has a better looking connection to the 1 stone over here, rather than playing this move where as soon as white cuts, you're busy also cutting white back and then white gets to play the next move right away. So then, you know, if white extends here, it feels like white's threatening both sides at once. Like if black defends, let's say here, then white can press this down. And if black plays on this side, then yeah, white can start to play in this direction. So although these threats aren't very serious right now anyway against black, but this is something that white could do anytime. So it's something that black has to worry about. So it's a little bit more usual to play the double knights move here, but either one would be pretty much fine, but this is the joseki. Either way, you need to play something. You shouldn't let white just bust out of here because let's just say you extend here. The purpose of this stone here wasn't really to just make territory. If you're just making territory like this, you're already leaking under from white's stone at 4 anyway, so there isn't really any points here anyway. And you're also not really focusing on the left side. So now white can just break out like this and pretty much destroy any hope you had here of a two-dimensional framework, or at least you know, to get a really big left side. And if black just defends, then you know, black didn't really need this giant wall, nor did black need the little group here that barely has 2 eyes, and white can actually just attack now like this. There isn't very much synergy with black playing like this. It's better to focus on the left side and keep building and making your stones work together. And since you've sealed white off, not only do you help the one stone here, although it can still be cut, but you know, it's a lot less important now since black also has space over here. But also because white is sealed off, you can get future forcing moves against white's corner. For example, you know, at some point later, you can descend here and white would have to protect the corner. And then you can get these first line moves as well and finish in sente. You can also hane and connect here. And yeah, white would probably have to add a move here. There are other ways that white can respond instead of playing 10, but 10 would be pretty normal, especially if white wants to keep black thin and weak around here, rather than making black stronger by attaching and, you know, having black add stones around here. So if white were not sealed in, then you wouldn't really get all of those forcing moves for sure. By the way, if black plays here and white tries to ignore, then black can just push in like this and cut. If white captures this, then black can just counter Atari and basically just make off with the one stone here like this. And to make matters worse in the future, this descent here would be locally sente, because if white ignores, then black can actually make a ko situation. So white only has 1 eye here, and white's only hope of survival would be to throw in like this, and then throw in again for a ko that black takes first. So locally speaking, white would pretty much have to respond to this as well. So white only gets around 6 points. And if you cut here and white connects on this side, then of course, if you just Atari here, you can win the Liberty fight. So when black plays here, white absolutely has to respond. And this is a really important part of black building up the left side. If you try to just seal off white right away in some way, then in this case, like white could break out here, and also there's a shape problem over here in the future. If you try to seal off white like this, there's actually a number of things white can do. First of all, white might consider to hane here and then just break out like this. And this might be good for black on the right side, but it's terrible for black on the left. Another thing white can choose to do is simply wedge directly. And even though black can fix the situation by connecting at 7, there's still a really bad cut over here. So attaching like this wouldn't be a very good idea in this case. The only move to play is extending here. In the real game, black blocked on the wrong side. And this is a really common mistake. So, you know, this is kind of like a direction lesson, because when black plays the side star point stone here, black is trying to build up the left side. And when you block this side and you have white extend this way, white's basically leaking in and destroying all the territory on the left side. So it seems like black doesn't know what they want. They're trying to get the left, but then they're trying to get the bottom. What does black want, right? Black extends, white hane and connect like this. Black fixes like this or like this. And then white jumps out. And this push and cut doesn't matter because white actually has a lot of liberties with these stones now. So instead of getting tricked and taking the one stone and getting countered like this, white can actually just connect solid and there's nothing black can do in the corner. By the way, if you're interested in a video that goes in detail and tries to explain exactly why every single move is played, for example, why does white play the Hane and connect here, which seems to damage their own stone on the outside? And also what happens if black tries to play Hane here instead of extending? You can find all that in Joseki Concepts episodes 1 and 2. So in the real game, we had this joseki play out, and black chose to Hane on this side instead, which is pretty unusual, but basically it's putting extra emphasis on the bottom instead of the side. So what I was talking about during the game is that although it would be fine if white plays this exchange now, and then just extends, or perhaps in this case, jumps to here, black would probably play here for the same reasons that I showed you earlier for the situation here when I explained why black plays this extension, which for one thing threatens to push and cut. In this situation, after this and when white jumps, black again should play this similar looking move here. It threatens to push and cut, which would be quite effective in destroying white's position. And it also builds up the wall and stops white from playing the tiger's mouth to move out. So white would respond with something like this to indirectly fix the cut, or possibly this one. And then black would most likely add another move around here, maybe like this, to make sure that this stone can't run out, because if this stone runs out, then black might end up with 2 weak groups. So now black plays here, and there's a territory of a little over 10 points here, and a slightly smaller territory here for white. But the nice thing for white is that white has Sente, and white has already ruined the position over here, which at this point isn't really doing a whole lot in terms of making territory or building moyo or anything like that. So overall, this would be a pretty nice result for white. So the reason why I personally didn't want to exchange this first is because I would like to extend first, because if black takes this away from me, then I have a number of options. For example, I still have space to extend to here and get a base, but by not exchanging this, I leave behind some interesting possibilities. For example, there's a peep here. And so, especially if I've already played over here and settled this group, I might get a chance to peep here and then, just run out like this and attack 2 weak groups now, not to mention destroying black's territory. Another thing is that if I ever wanted to turn here, then it becomes a little bit tougher for black to respond because, for example, if black plays empty triangle, this isn't nice, is it? Right? I mean, black didn't really gain anything from that exchange, and still white can, just run out with these stones. And if black attaches, which would look a little more normal, in this case, there's some issues with that because, for example, if white plays Hane here, black would like to cut, but if black cuts, then we have this kind of problem happening. So this all happens because these 2 groups here are not connected by their liberties. So they have their own individual sets of liberties. The stones in the corner have 5 liberties and these stones have 4. As soon as I turn here, now the stones here have 3. So this is why that kind of stuff happens. And if I were to Hane in the corner first, then when black connects, now black is just 1 unit with 1 set of liberties, in this case 6 liberties. So now even if I play here, black could even just choose to do something like pincering. And now when I turn here, it's not going to be as powerful. Now black can just go here. And it's a little safer than before because, for example, let's say that white plays like this. Even putting aside the danger, like white might not be able to play this way right now because like if black just plays here, then maybe the group in the corner is in danger, right? But setting that aside, let's just say that black cuts. Then if white Ataris and black comes out, white connects. Now if black just cuts, this time white actually has fewer liberties than black. So this time it's not a disaster for black because if white plays here, black just plays Atari. So the aji inside that white has to use in here is not as bad for black now because black has more liberties. Just to show you guys one more time what would have happened if I didn't make this exchange. Then let's say I go here and black plays here. And when I turn here, suppose black again attaches on top. This time, if we just look at the same thing one more time, because there's only 3 liberties left for these 2 stones, Now when I Atari here, and I can just take the 2 stones, and this is a disaster for black. So that is the power of liberties and why you need to pay attention to them. So again, I think that Hane here is totally fine. You know, you can still get a good result by playing something like this, like here or here. And still I prefer white here because black owes a move here. And the stone over here is in a pretty questionable position now. White is settled, white is out, and black's potential territory is already destroyed. So this is not very good for black. Still, it was my preference, at least in this game, to not exchange this right away because I thought that black wasn't going to take that away from me anyway. If I play here and black plays here, I don't really care. I can still make a base over here anyway, but I also have other options, like now or more likely later, to just start fighting. Like one thing I could even think about here is immediately coming out with this stone. Now I turn black into 2 weak groups, and I also have 2 weak groups, but you know, this might be something I would consider to fight out. It's probably a little unreasonable for white to start the fight right now, but it's just an example. And it would depend on the situation too, because it might be perfectly reasonable depending on what's actually going on the board, and especially the nearby areas. So going back to the real game, black chose to actually Hane, which is actually much worse than extending here because now there's 2 cutting points. You might be starting to notice a recurring pattern where there's like a push in and a cut on the second line in order to cut on the other side. For example, if white cuts here and black takes, then white can cut on the other side. So I've shown you a few similar things so far. It's kind of like we had a different order of moves, like white attached here, black went down, white extended, and then instead of turning here, black chose to jump. And this would be a problem because, you know, white can push in and start cutting. And so if we go to the real game, you can see I immediately cut here. Black Atari'd like this. I extended once to make it so that this whole thing is going to be 1 eye. And at this point, black should back off like this and make me play here. But instead, black kept going. So I counter Atari here and connect up to the ally right here. And these 2 stones only have 3 liberties, so it's not like black can successfully seal me off here. Meanwhile, this group here only has 1 eye, and so black is almost captured. Black does have a chance to survive if black plays something like this, which at the moment I can't really capture that. I can't really disconnect. So, you know, as white, I would probably just focus on myself for a moment and defend like this. That way, if black comes out, then we can just play a net. And now that I've captured these 2 stones, I can then look towards doing something much more aggressive over here to take advantage of black not having 2 eyes. So black would presumably play some kind of defense, and then we would have a bit of an exchange here, but still seems pretty good for white because in terms of points, black got barely anything. And the stone over here is now totally out of place. It's difficult to attack white now, and this stone here is pretty weak, and not to mention it's white's turn now. So black pretty much lost 3 stones out of this, and now white gets time to play some sort of attack, let's just say this, or any move around here really. Black also made a pretty big extra mistake in the corner because actually, when we go back to the cut, black actually should have Atari'd on this side because at least if I extend it, and black plays here and I Atari, black takes and I extend to save my 1 stone. Now at least black has space to make 1 eye and get the 2 eyes that they need. Of course, this empty triangle here is not going to work because white's just going to block, and then clearly nothing really happened with that, right? This move pretty much connects to the corner in the same way that a monkey jump is a connected move. Just for those of you who are not familiar, if you have a situation, for example, where black has, you know, maybe a territory over here and it's late in the game, and white plays here and black ignores. One of the moves you can use to reduce a territory when you have a stone on the second line peeking in like this is called a monkey jump. In this case, there are other options such as jumping here, but the monkey jump is basically a first line play that looks really far away. It's a large knight's move and yet cannot be disconnected. If black plays here, you simply connect like that. If black attaches, you just Atari and then take. And yeah, there's really no way to disconnect. So monkey jump is a common endgame play, sometimes late middle game. and it usually reduces by quite a few points, at least 6 most of the time. And it often finishes in Sente too, although you'll have to read it out yourself because whether it finishes in Sente or not depends on the situation. Going back to the game now. Black basically just died in the corner like this, and Black's pushing and trying to decrease my liberties and capture, but I just keep increasing my liberties. Black played here, trying really hard to contain White and also make sure that White cannot get 2 eyes here, trying to keep this space down to 1 eye. The problem now is Black has a lot of defects now. There's a lot of cutting points like here, here, and even if you just imagine White playing this, if Black tries to block and contain White, White can simply Atari and just keep following this over and win the Liberty fight. So what Black would do then, ideally, is just sacrifice like that. And this would still be great for White, but I chose not to do this because I didn't want to make the unnecessary exchange of 3 for 4, which strengthens Black's outside a little bit. So what I did instead is to play the second line Hane, and first of all try to lock Black into a decision. Because at least now, if Black still plays something like here or out here, then I can just play out in some way like here or even just Atari or whatever, and yeah, get safety. And at least Black has to play there themselves, and I'm not giving it for free. The simplest thing even would be just to extend. And now it's really difficult for Black to contain this territory here. Not to mention, the group already has enough space for 2 eyes as it is. So if you compare that to me playing this way, and then playing Atari here and getting counter Atari'd like this, even if we just imagine Black playing here, White is not completely out this way. White kind of helped Black get this outside stone here, and not to mention, White is alive, but, you know, just barely. It seemed better to play here, because now, like in the real game, if Black blocks like this, then we just Atari. If Black tries to block White from the center, we can take. And if Black blocks again, we have options now. We can start a ko like this, or we can even just back off and make 2 eyes like this. So the real game went like this, and Black just let White get out. This was actually probably an even bigger mistake than letting me capture the 1 stone. Because now that White is out, there's no way to contain White, and so this White group is never going to get fully surrounded as long as White keeps playing. So that means that the Black group here is pretty much fully captured. Even if Black seals this area off, for example, if Black played this move, something like this, which would be a lot better than the game move, at least White can just play out the Liberty fight at any time, and White is far ahead of Black on Liberties. In the real game, Black chose to Atari here, but this didn't really do too much because White already busted out into the center, so White doesn't even need to play here, first of all. White can just ignore because this isn't really threatening anything. So even though the situation is pretty dire for Black as it is, Black definitely should have sealed off this area and at least force White to play a Liberty fight inside and kind of unite the groups as well and, you know, avoid having so many weak groups. So real game, Black played here, and you don't have to be fancy like this. You could just move out anyway. Like you could play like this or even diagonal here, and this would still be extremely good for White. I just chose to play in my own way, which is like threatening this stone here quite severely. And when Black resists as I expected, then I can just respond like this, which threatens both instead. If I just block on the top, Black has a chance to cut and at least try to make something happen here. So that's why I just extend, because I know that if Black keeps pushing out here, Black's going to be basically killing their own group on the left. So that's why I wasn't afraid of this bump. So real game, Black pushes through, and again, I just extend. Black fixes this part, and now I still get to block. And this is all the block I needed, because now Black's liberties are down to 3. You know, if Black never cuts here, then the pushing here was actually meaningless, and it just helped White for no reason. So Black cuts, but then the problem with cutting now is that Black is so short of liberties that now if White just extends, Black doesn't have time to help this stone because White can just play here and win the Liberty fight. So Black resisted, of course, by pushing along. And because Black only has 4 liberties, that's how I knew that I could Hane here. I know for some of you it would be a little scary playing here because it seems like Black could Atari and then Atari like this. But actually, even if this happens, white can actually just extend down. And if black wants to save these 4 stones, the only way now would be to capture these 2 white stones. But to do that, black would have to play here. However, as soon as white extends here, black loses the liberty fight. So for me, because I've seen this shape so many times, I already know without really reading it out that I can hane here. So that's the kind of shape recognition that any of you guys will develop with time. But it is a little scary looking, right? And in this particular case, it's actually still okay even if you choose to extend, because if you just extend like this, at least you're still going to have a chance to play this ladder. You might be allowing black a little more than they deserve, but white is still going to be far ahead in this position, so it's not the worst. You can also consider to extend, because even if black plays here, not only can you threaten black like this, and black is still in extreme danger here, but on top of black's danger at the bottom, let's not forget we can still play out the liberty fight in the corner, and black doesn't really have too many liberties. Let's say black plays here. Even if we thought that this group here couldn't beat the bottom one in liberties, we could just play things like this, and the liberty fight is pretty easy. In fact, we'd be able to ignore for at least 1 move. So black would basically have to keep pushing here or potentially play a knight's move, and we have plenty of time in that case to just capture this and be nice and connected and solid. And then black's going to have to start moving out with this group over here. Maybe something like this, and we just run together. Back to the real game. So I hane here, black plays hane as well, and I solid connect because I know that black has to continue, which it should be like this. This would have been the more proper way to play here. And I can get some forcing moves like this. And I have a few choices now. I can continue to bully black on the bottom. And it would actually be quite severe because black doesn't have 2 eyes. But I could also just play here and be nice and happy, and it's also sente against the group over here. If black plays, let's say like this, you don't need to get distracted. You don't need to respond to this because your corner is fine. It's not going to die. So instead, you could just play something like this and basically capture everything. So yeah, try not to get distracted when your opponent has like all these weak groups everywhere and they're trying to settle everything at once without sacrificing any. Even if black double approaches or something here, we can just, there's all kinds of options, even just coming out like this. At least we're safe, right? So, you know, sometimes there's higher priority things like killing this group, which also makes white safe. Okay, back to the real game again. So we connect. Black makes the same mistake as before by playing hane here. And so now we can start cutting things. We can cut either side. Like if we cut this side and black takes, we're going to counter Atari here, black takes, and we can just play a ladder or even just extend like this. And black still doesn't have 2 eyes, so black would play here, and if we connect, then black lives. Play here now. Nice and solid on the outside, we're all connected, and again, we're threatening this little mini dragon over here. Still a really good result for white, because if you look at black's territories, black's dead in the corner. Black has only 4 points here, and just a little bit here, right? Whereas we get to attack this group for a while, and you know, we have a lot of strength built up here. We pretty much have control of the game, so even this variation would be fine. But of course, another option we have here is to Atari, and black can still live actually if they connect, and we connect, and they make an eye here. So black could make a ko here, but this would be a little bit extreme. And so most likely what black would do is simply connect, and then we also connect, and black makes 1 eye. This time black has only 2 points. Maybe 3, since taking later is going to be sente for black. But either way, we play here, and it's a good game for white. As you saw in the game, I chose to cut on the other side, partly because I didn't want to think any longer and waste another precious Byoyomi period that I need for explaining stuff. So I cut here, let black take the outside if they want it, and I would just counter Atari here and capture the inside stones. And we would be all connected, which means that this cutting stone over here becomes meaningless and I don't even have to capture it. But black chose to resist that by connecting the inside. But the thing about the inside is that it's basically dead locally even with another move. If black plays here, then white can just play right there and no way to make 2 eyes. So I played the ladder and black played this, which if I go down, then now my ladder doesn't work anymore. But naturally I just take, black connects under, and almost anything white does is good here. Like if white connects and black plays here, white can do a number of things. White can play here to get an eye while taking away black's eyes, and then black just has to like struggle around in this area. And then we can just do more of a long-term attack. We can go here first, and maybe we play out this fight. And, you know, after we play out this fight, especially if we get Sente, then we can start attacking this one. And as black runs out this way and we run with black, this group here will probably also end up in danger. So even though there is one eye here, but if you imagine white getting a bunch of stones along here, then still white will be able to threaten that. So black actually has a lot to manage on top of being dead in the corner here. And that means it isn't really a fight because white actually can't lose anything. As long as white doesn't let themselves get surrounded with this group, which is pretty easy to do, just keep running away, right? White can always fall back on playing out this short liberty fight here. So this isn't really a fight. This is just white attacking black everywhere. Another way white could play, of course, is to simply press black down like this. Black can push once and get an eye locally like this, but even if black gets an eye here, white can play here and the whole group would die because there's only one eye. If black plays the other side instead, then throw in first. If black connects, then white can just play here, because even if black takes, white can break the eye here. Or if black plays like this, then white can increase the size of the sacrifice. And when black takes, then white throws in one more time to create a false eye. But of course, white needs to worry about the outside too, like extending the one stone here, because white doesn't have any eyes and just a few liberties, right? So in the real game, I chose to play in a much safer way, which is just to Atari the outside and fix and make black spend time making eye space on the bottom. And even here, I could go for the kill like this and probably win the liberty fight, to be honest. But I chose to just be nice and relaxed here and just play this because after black lives on the bottom, well, you guessed it, right? We can just kill this group here, or at least attack it. So yeah, black lives on the bottom. Most likely black should actually exchange a move here at least. That way we can't surround this group so easily. And yeah, then switch to the bottom. And at least now it's difficult for white to completely surround this group. So the best we can probably manage is attacking it. But that's good enough, right? So we can peep once here. And then we just move out with this group in some way. Maybe we play diagonal. Maybe we jump out like this and also put a little bit of threat on the left side. And we just go for the long-term attack and be really annoying and make black keep having to play defensive moves for as long as we can, doing kind of A for B exchanges where black has to keep being defensive and we keep getting profit, either with territory or with some kind of influence in the center. Either way, every stone that we get is going to be better than every stone that black gets because black is limited to just defensive moves to stay connected, to keep running away, to make eyes or whatever. So that is the beauty of attacking, is that you don't need to kill, you just need to attack and get profit, and the longer the attack, usually the more profit you can get. So back to the real game now. After black lived like this, we surrounded the little mini dragon over here, and the game is pretty much over at this point. Black pushed out, and instead of blocking directly, I chose to extend and increase our liberties a bit first, since at least the wall down here is long enough and strong enough that we had time to just extend a bit first before we just seal black in for good. Because if I just block here, then the issue is if black plays like this and then we cut and black connects, this way we have a little bit to think about now. For example, if we come out like this to save this group over here, then there's some complications that can arise here. For example, let's say that black Ataris like this and then extends. Now already, even though we probably have a way to manage this, we have two groups to manage now. This group has just 4 liberties and our group over here has only 2 liberties. And after we extend, if black pushes again, Black's basically threatening both groups at once. So even though there might be a way out of this for white, it's just a needless complication. And I didn't want to have to bother with that. Instead of Atarying here, black could also choose to just push up directly after white extends. And if black can get one more exchange, then if we just extend like this already, we're going to have to worry about this black Atari and check the ladder, which in this case works for white. But, you know, black might make things even more complicated by, for example, extending like this. And it's just a lot to think about that we don't really need. So if we go back to the real game, it was a lot simpler this way, even though the other way might work too, because I just keep extending and we still get to lock black in when I play the double hane over here. Now, of course, you want to read this out in advance and make sure that everything's fine. And again, we're winning, right? We have this corner captured. We have full control over the situation. We have all the potential territory here. And if you look at black's territories, right? Just a tiny little one here and down here, quite negligible. So even if you're afraid of the variations or you're not sure if you're reading, you don't need to go for the capture here. You know, you can just extend. And you can even consider to just let black run away even when it comes down to it. Don't get yourself cut here. Like let's say black pushes here again. Then maybe you just fix this cut with maybe a move like this. And you know, if black tries to hane, you can cut here maybe. But again, if you want to keep it simple, maybe you just hane here. And you know, you just keep getting a big wall and some profit while black just keeps struggling. If black extends like this, then maybe you consider to peep here and, you know, take away all of black's shape. Or maybe you preserve that cut potential and just continue down. And if black extends down, you're probably not going to get a successful cut here at this point. So maybe you peep, but maybe instead of peeping directly, maybe you do an indirect peep like down here. If black tries to ignore, then actually you can cut now. And this would be a disaster for black. Or maybe you don't cut right away. Maybe you respawn somewhere on this side first, since the entire thing doesn't really have two eyes. You have so many options, right? And you're getting this huge wall in the center, this huge potential, big corner. So, you know, this is what it means to have a really long-winded attack on someone. It's so profitable. So guys, I urge you to sometimes resist the urge to capture your opponent, especially when it's like a giant dragon group. There's often many ways for them to live, and oftentimes it's using the weaknesses that you create while you're trying to capture everything. But sometimes you can get all you need to win just by attacking for a while and profiting. So control the bloodthirst. In the real game, because I did read this out, I chose to just go for the capture because I didn't see a problem. But again, the reading can be pretty complicated or difficult to visualize around here sometimes. Since you don't want to die with your own little dragon here while you're trying to capture blacks, if you can't read it clearly, it's up to you whether you go for it or not. It might be a good learning experience if you try to capture and you fail. But if your goal is just to win the game, you know, you can just keep it simple. If you can just assess the situation as such where, you know, you have this big group here. It used to be a weak group, but it became the attacking group. You have this weak black group here, which is in between all your strong stones, desperately struggling to get out and survive. You have some good points from the dead corner over here. You've got some points here. You're getting a wall in the center. Black doesn't have much to their name at all so far in terms of points. So you don't need to rush into capturing or doing anything rash. You can just attack and just calmly profit. Every single exchange that black makes when they're having to defend over and over again is going to be gain for you. One or more points of gain every time. So, you know, black pushes and you extend, white gained. Black pushes and you extend, white gained. White has influence facing this way. Black has influence facing nothing. Black pushes, you hane, or maybe you fix the cut that you might be worried about, and you play here. And black hane, you just hane back and get all the profit while black basically gets nothing. So in the real game, I went for the capture. Black tried to make things complicated, which makes sense because, you know, better to go out with a bang than to just lose calmly or lose peacefully, right? You'll learn more that way too if you're losing, and If you're losing the game, it's better to try everything you can to turn the game around, even if it makes you get captured and just kind of die everywhere, than to just like accept your defeat, but just, you know, like not create any problems for your opponent and just let them win peacefully. That's not really the greatest way to play. I mean, margin of victory doesn't really matter, right? Like winning by 0.5 or by 100 points, like it doesn't really matter. What matters is your win record, right? Like how many times do you win? Doesn't matter the margin. So I can't stress this enough. If you're behind, try to turn the game around. You're going to learn more that way. Things will get more complicated. After this and white just takes the ko or connects, the game's pretty much like guaranteed over now, because even if black plays a ko threat, I don't need to fight the ko, I just connect. Now, white's all connected here and the group in the corner is captured. That means that all of white's stones on the board pretty much are connected except for maybe the stone here and the corner up here. But yeah, pretty much the center and the side over here, and because the corner here is dead, then also the group here, all of them are actually connected. This is Sente, and this move here is black's final attempt at making trouble. And what I would advise for you guys to do is something a little simpler than what I did. So I played like this and just followed black down and played the ko and see what black does. And I wanted to make black waste ko threats on this, because if black does these kind of ko threats, let's say like this, and takes back the ko, at least now, although I can choose to just peacefully go down like this and then just play out a liberty fight and make sure I'm okay, but if I want to just connect under, black has the ability to throw in and make a ko here, but at least now black doesn't have any more local ko threats. So I take, black tries to play a ko threat, but even if black plays here, that's not a ko threat because I can just connect. And black doesn't really have any ko threats anywhere as far as I can see. So black plays something and I'll just take these, and black cuts here, but it doesn't really matter because I can just run away in some fashion. Anyway, what I would actually recommend doing though is something simpler. One thing you can do is just extend along like this. And just make sure you get enough liberties to feel comfortable. Make sure that you know that, all of these black here are captured, all the black in the corner are captured. Even if you have to sacrifice a bit in the corner, at least if you're not confident, you can play this way and make absolutely sure that you win the liberty fight. If you're feeling a little more confident, you can do something fancier like either what I did, or there's a number of different things, like you might wedge like this and double Atari, and then when black takes, you can just Atari here. Black can still play a cut over here, but you do have this ko, so at least there's that. Another thing you can consider is to just play here, but the problem with this is that if black just pushes, let's say like this way, and then here, you start to have problems actually. There is one cool way to play in this case though. Even if you don't want to fight this ko, you can actually Atari here now and make some sacrifices like this. At least this way you can connect out like this, and you might be giving black a bit on the bottom, but at least black is cut off here and you're all out here, so there's no liberty fight whatsoever between any of these groups. These are all just dead black groups. Even if black plays down like this, you have plenty of liberties now with this group, so you don't have to worry about fighting against this group here that has only 5 liberties left, or against the corner here. So you could just ignore this even and maybe attack from this side. You have some moves around here that threaten the connection. You could just play a normal knight's move. You have a lot of options here. So in the real game, it went like this, and because black backed off on the ko here, white just instantly was able to connect, since this would be self-Atari. So the game pretty much ended for real there, because white's all connected and there's nothing black can do. So real game, black just took the ko, but white just connected. And I think black was confused, thinking that for some reason they need to connect this, but this doesn't really do anything. Black played here, but this was worth around like 2 points. So white just plays elsewhere now and attacks this. So unfortunately, what you could see here is that black is just getting attacked everywhere, and that's pretty much what the game was all about. So a bit of a tragic game for black. Black extends down. I block the corner, which is where black would easily make eye space. And black extended like this instead of maybe threatening to jump into my corner or something. I still would have responded probably on this side, but at least this would have had some follow-ups like playing here, which could do something. But instead, black went up. And so I didn't even need to defend my corner in any way or worry about the corner. Or worry about black getting eyes in the corner by jumping in, maybe. So I just extended here and finished surrounding this whole place, at least, well, this side of it. And also stopping black from extending this way for points and eye space. And black does a few moves to struggle for eyes, and these are fine. White can actually launch a pretty severe attack on black's eye space by playing here. But, you know, we don't really need to go for the kill, and we can also wait until later. So I just played elsewhere. Playing on the star point would be totally fine too. And another thing is we can play a move like this to just get corner while also starting to surround this. And because there is still some potential to live in here with usually at least a ko, the way that works actually, and you can actually apply this in general to the small knight's move enclosure from the 4-4, is black invades, white blocks on the side that gives black less space. Black expands the space, white blocks, and then black needs to somehow try to get 2 eyes now. So the best place is here, especially because this is where white has fewer liberties. And in some cases, after white plays here and black connects, you guys know white would often need to fix the cutting point here, right? But in many cases, especially this one, especially when there's no black around in this area here, this cut actually doesn't do anything. So white can actually just play here and reduce black's corner down to just 1 eye. I urge you to stop and think about this if you're not sure on the life and death here, and think about how black might try to live here and how white would prevent that. This is a shape that can't live as long as white responds, and so you should probably make sure you're really solid on that, because this comes up a lot in real games. So if white plays like this, black is fully captured. Black can try to clamp, but white just connects and just plays something like this, and black's not going to be able to make another real eye. Black can struggle, but ultimately it's not going to work in this case because even with this Atari, black would need to extend and then white has time to Atari out like that. There is some danger, but white can manage it. With a clamp like this though, if you make the mistake of descending down, this is going to be a big disaster actually, because when black cuts, white is actually going to lose one of these two groups. If you Atari here, then black extends and now you're in Atari. And if white connects, then black just captures here like this. So don't make that mistake. In this kind of situation, when black clamps, you need to connect. If black cuts, don't make the mistake of Atarying here, because if you just read a little bit further before you play this, you would see that if black extends and Atari is here, white needs to respond here, but now black can come back and capture the 1 stone here. This would make black live and destroy quite a bit of the territory out here. This would be a disaster. If white just extends like this, black has no way to make alive now and no way to capture any of these white groups, unless of course there were some black stones out here somewhere. But as it stands, and also in the general situation without stones around, this is what would happen and black would just be dead in the corner. So why is that a ko? It's a ko because black can't live by connecting here. So instead, black needs to play a hanging connection like this. Now, if white just plays on this side like before, black's going to live because after black plays here and white connects, this time it's a little different. Black can actually make an eye shape like this and have 2 eyes. So in a case like this, when black plays the hanging connection, white needs to play the Atari here, assuming that white wants to capture this. And if black connects, then black dies like that. So black needs to make a ko by playing like this. If black backs off here instead of fighting the ko or during the ko, then white has another option now. Since black already got shrunk a bit in the corner, this is a moment when white could choose to let black live by connecting here, and then black plays like this. And in the end game, we can get an exchange like this happening. And so ultimately, we can get an exchange like this happening, and ultimately the corner has 3 points at the end. So sometimes you might let black live at this point and just take Sente. After black backs off, if white wants to keep trying to capture black, white would play on this side. And black would take back the ko, and this is where it gets weird because if white backs off now to keep this as a false eye, black can actually cut here. And this is a problem for white too, but this is an easier fight for white now than the other ko because at least now, white can take and black would have to play a ko threat. And after black plays a successful ko threat somewhere and black takes, white can just extend here. And black would need to continue threatening one of these two groups, like maybe Atari, or maybe extend like this. And again, white can take the ko. So this would be a little bit more difficult now for black to win the ko. But at the same time, it might be a risk that white doesn't bother taking. So of course, if black does succeed with this ko, that means that one of these two white groups on the outside got captured. And that would be quite the disaster for white, although it's difficult for black to pull off. So if white doesn't want any of that, like I said, at that point, white could choose to just back off like this and let black live with a very small life in the corner of 3 points. White can then take sente to just play something on the top like approaching or even just taking territory like this, or maybe a little farther. And white can expect to get at least most of this. One more thing to consider in this position is that after white connects and black connects under, black is looking for another eye around here, but one thing that white can do actually is, let's say, forcing along the side like this. And even if you let black make another eye with getting this much space, white has the option of descending here now. And this might threaten this group and this group at the same time. So if black defends on this side, for example, then white can do something like throwing in here and turning this into a false eye like that. So it's also nice to be observant of what else is going on in the nearby situations. And of course, if you don't want the ko to happen from this shape here, then you can just solidify the corner really solid like this. This would still get a lot of points, and you still have a lot of potential out here even though black can play the first move in this area. At least you have the corner, and if black plays around here, then you still have a chance to surround a lot of points here, not to mention invading black's corner. One drawback you could say of extending farther is that black does have the option to live unconditionally like this, and you can get something like this happening. So you do get all this, but you can see that black got not only the corner, but also destroyed the top potential. One other really cool piece of knowledge I think you guys should know. Not only is this shape here a ko without any support nearby if they invade at the 3-3 point, but if white extends one space farther, then in normal cases, it's actually unconditional life in here. So if we play a similar sequence for trying to live, this time, because this stone at 1 is not one space closer, when black plays here and white blocks, there's actually an Atari here. And this Atari is very important because after white connects, when black keeps expanding the eye space by playing Hane on this side, which is natural because you have two places to expand the eye space, Hane here or connecting here. But this is where white is short of liberties, and it's also where black would potentially get out, right? So it makes a lot more sense to play here. If you've heard of the proverb, Hane the head of two stones blindly, well, this is like Haneing the other head of two stones blindly because now you kind of have two Hanes on the white stones. So white is already down to only 2 liberties. Don't make the mistake though of backing off and doing something like this. White does have time to play here because if black tries to Atari, white just responds once and then comes back and captures this stone here. So don't make the mistake of letting black actually get out completely because this would be an absolute disaster for white. So don't get me wrong, white can totally block here. But after black connects, white does have to fix now. The reason, unlike before, what I explained, where the cut here didn't do anything, there's actually a stone here which is taking away white's liberties. So now if white tries to create that dead shape that we talked about before, this cut is severe and one of these 2 white groups over here are captured now. If white tries to save it by extending here, black can simply Atari once this way or twice, doesn't matter, and capture the 2 stones like this. So the way that this joseki goes, actually, this is something you should memorize for sure. Well, better than memorizing, of course, would be to understand it. And that's what my joseki concept series is all about. But in any case, black invades a 3-3. Black extends the eye space on the side where there are more spaces available. White blocks. Black plays the hane to expand the eye space. And when white blocks like this, black has this Atari. And because of this Atari, which is like kind of an exchange that there's no reason not to do, because you get to cut and make white play a useless stone. Now when black plays hane and connect, white needs to fix around here, and then black has time to play this, and this is a living shape. Normally white adds a move here and takes gote, because black extending here, it can be big trouble. But in this case, because white has so much strength around, white can do any kind of fight. So actually white wouldn't really play there in this case, but instead something at least like this that would be a little bit more greedy and positive. Black doesn't really have anywhere to run if they extend and you play something like this. White doesn't really have anything to worry about, and black has nowhere to run. And you just play anything, and it's too hard to make two eyes. Or maybe on this side. So that's just a quick tangent for you guys that I wanted to give you some bonus knowledge that comes up in a lot of games and would really help you out if you didn't know it before. So small knight's move enclosure, there's a ko inside. Of course, there's also other ways to invade sometimes, like on the second line. But if you just want to dive deep into the corner, that's going to be a ko unless black has some support nearby. And if you play the large knight's move, then it's actually unconditional life for black. And this is why high-level players and pros tend to not like the large knight's move so much and prefer the small knight's move, except for certain situations. But in general, small knight's move is often a better move, at least from the 4-4 point. In the real game, I played all the way to here. Black invaded on the side rather than near the corner. And so I pincered from the corner. And if black jumped out like this, I was going to just move out. Maybe I would exchange something like this first. But either way, I would end up jumping like this to just make sure I'm nice and safe, nice and connected. Black is probably going to survive in here, and I'm not expecting to capture. But my goal is to get a whole bunch of solid territory here and also get sente. So black would probably start attaching and doing some fairly desperate things to make shape, because black is all fully surrounded here and it's quite dangerous. So black plays some moves in this direction, helps me solidify my corner. And black cannot dive into here because this would be disconnected, and I would just disconnect them through the middle, and one of them would end up dying. So black is going to keep moving in a connected way, and because black can't overextend safely, white is going to be able to solidify not only this part, but also the entire side over here. And white can probably finish in sente as well, since black has to do a lot of work to make two eyes in here. And so after I get all the solid territory over here, after getting sente, I can just do something like jumping in the corner over here and get some more points. In the real game, black attached along the side. And actually, there's a common middle game joseki. When you've invaded into a side and approached a fourth line stone like this, one of the ways you can live often is to attach like that and then actually hane against white's hane like this. It seems like there's danger because white can Atari like this and take like that, but you can counter Atari here and Atari like this and start getting some shape, and it becomes harder and harder to try to kill the black group. Even if white extends and black doesn't have the ladder, black can just squeeze like that and eventually get enough stones on the outside to maybe live. Even on the side here, there's an Atari and potential to make one eye. So black just needs one eye out here and then another eye either out here or on the side. So this is pretty hard to attack actually. And if white Atari is here, then black just connects, and white has a lot of different parts to fix and connect. So even if black has to sacrifice something, black's going to survive somewhere here. By capturing this stone or connecting to this stone, it's too hard to capture black. Black can get at least this much. So that's kind of a middle game joseki of sorts, or a nice sort of Tetsuji combination, you could say, that you might also want to remember. In this particular case though, even though normally you do want to block the side and stop them from getting away and getting all sorts of territory along the side, in this case, because I have such a big potential in the center here, I chose to simply wall off like this. Now white has almost finished making this massive territory in the center. This next part is an important thing to take note of too. Black bumped here, and if you just blindly block here without thinking too much, black can hane here, and you can't play this because then Atari and capture, right? So you have to just extend again. And black can push again, and you end up losing a lot of territory along the side in the corner. And black's already alive, although black is probably going to continue with something like this. But you end up giving black more than they deserved and losing some points for yourself. In fact, black can also do some things in the corner, like maybe clamping here because of white's liberty shortage. What you want to do in a case like this is actually extend the liberties of this one stone. The stones here seem to have enough liberties for now, and especially because you have so much strength down here too, again, which I keep mentioning. If a fight breaks out around here due to black pushing and cutting, you can fight because you have this extremely powerful backdrop, this kind of white arena to fight in, right? So if black pushes and cuts like we see in the game, there's a few things you can do here. You can respond even just like on this side somewhere, or maybe even extend here. In this case, I chose the best shape of just extending like this. Keep nice shape on both sides. It's very difficult for black to try to survive in this area since white is so strong and can play the most powerful attacks possible without any worry of black running away. So I don't mind black trying to run around because it's probably not going to work too well. So in the real game, black extends and white defends. And now black is running around like this, but it's very difficult for black to survive in this area. I don't even have to cut like I'm doing now. I can just choose something like play around here and force black to connect with just some neutral point stones. Maybe I push and then just connect here, and then black has to do some kind of connecting move, and then, you know, it doesn't seem like black's getting eyes. There's a lot of different variations you can choose, of course. There might be some cleaner ones than this one, but very difficult for black to live. What black actually should do here, either after this move or even before it, is to just play in the corner directly, because that's going to be the best black can get, actually. Black may have time to just hane here first, and white probably responds. Maybe just hane like this once. Of course, white would get sente and can just play something like this, but if black chooses to invade now, it should be near the corner because that's going to be black's only hope. This move will probably work, especially when there's some bad potential around here from the one black stone. White needs to play a little bit cautious, so white probably just blocks this side and just play in some way that lets black live, like maybe here. And just let black live inside and make a huge territory over here. And if black gets gote there, then, you know, even if black's alive, you can just get a really strong continuation on this side. Even just extending here would be enough because you have such a big territory over here. But in this case, you can actually double hane because your liberties with these three stones are totally fine. And so you're not really worried about this Atari. And if black Atari's here and takes like this, again, as we've seen over and over, white can do a counter Atari like this and actually capture everything in here. So in the real game, instead of playing in the corner or near the corner, maybe with like a move around here, like a more fancy invasion, like either there or the 3-3 point, black chose to just run directly with this group here. And so it made it really easy to attack. I just solidify and solidify again. And then in this case, I chose to just cut black off. But again, as I showed before, there's some simpler ways to go about this. You could just let black be fully connected with no eyes. And then I just reinforce these stones a little bit. And then I just reinforce the corner because the shape was actually getting pretty bad. That's what happens when you actually cut things in this manner with a diagonal attach. And like this. This is one of the worst ways to cut in terms of shape, although you still need to do it sometimes. But the problem is liberties because after black cuts and you play, let's say just here or whatever, reinforce the one stone here. There's all sorts of things that can happen here to white now actually due to the liberty shortage of these stones. For example, if black attaches like this and draws back, now this stone's actually in danger if black attaries here. So you would probably want to add a stone and then black can continue and play more moves. And sometimes black can find a living sequence. It also might make things that are deeper into the corner start working, like maybe black can play here. This move threatens to play in the 3-3 point for eyes, but also threatens to connect back here. So there's still a lot of bad aji in this corner actually. So that's why in the real game I play here. Now it's pretty solid. There isn't too much that black can do in the corner now. Black extends. And you don't need to Hane. Like I said in the real game, Hane sometimes helps the group that you're trying to attack because it gives them a free forcing move and sometimes helps them make shape, like go here, which is Sente against these two stones, and then continue this way. Or maybe black can peep here now. And this is also going to be a forcing move most likely. And still black is going to have trouble making two eyes, but at least this is a start for black. So often a better choice is to, instead of playing Hane, play something a little more distant like this, or sometimes even just playing here for the good shape. But I chose to Hane because I was confident that it would still work out for me. Black Hane, I extend. Black pushed again, I extend again. And I kept extending until my shape is as good as it can get and my eye space was getting bigger as well, because if we're going to be blocking off black anyway and we're expecting to capture everything, there's no reason to block black earlier on, because now when black cuts here, your liberties are shorter on each side, and even if white's fine, but there's no reason not to just let black make you get stronger and stronger, because these exchanges are all actually good for white. Black's getting nothing and white is gaining territory and strength. So now at the last minute, I will block black. And when black cuts, I chose to just Atari first to expand the eye space here even more. And then save the one stone here. But you could choose to just save the one stone here directly. And this would be fine too. You just have to think carefully and don't make a mistake around here. Real game, it went like this, and white is completely alive now. Black played here, but you can just follow through, and black is basically just getting ripped apart like this. So don't worry, you're just destroying the top, and now putting the group up top in danger as well. So real game, black defended, of course. Good move. And we're already alive actually in here, so I could take the corner like this, but seems better at this point to just make sure that the group in the center is absolutely dead and has only one eye or zero eyes. So in the real game, I played this one. Now, at best, black can only make a false eye there. Black played here, but I have time to extend here because even if black Atari's here, I can just play like this. No problem. We didn't really need to peep here though, so if you're worried, you just connect, and still only a false eye there, so not a problem. And I just defended here, which was not really necessary, but it just takes away black's hope and maybe can end the game a little sooner. It's also just an example for you guys in case the situation might be a little difficult to read and you just want to keep things simple, make sure black is captured, just defend like this after, because really there's no hope for black now to make an eye around here. So even if black manages to make an eye here, it's not going to matter. And just make sure there's no funny business around here. So black only made one eye, and if you want to be really careful, you can just add a move around here and just make it absolutely certain that black is completely dead, right? That's fine, you already won the game. But it was pretty clear to me that black can't make an eye around here. I looked at the forcing moves with like liberty shortage on my bamboo and all that stuff, but there's really nothing. So especially when I added a stone here, so I just went ahead and took more points. One last major point I'll leave you guys with is regarding the group over here. So if you look at the potential I space here, right? We see 2 points there, 1 point maybe here, and 1 or 2 points that black can make here, right? So I played here because I wanted to give black at least a chance to come back and live with this if they're aware, although I don't think they were. But I want to go through this with you guys for a moment. So the simplest way to try to capture a group, especially when it's all sealed off like this and the I space is very clear, is to just reduce the space from the outside. This is one of the best ways for solving Tsumego, is to just focus first on seeing what happens if you just reduce the space. Can you just capture that way? And after you reduce the space one or more times, you might end up playing a vital point inside, but even after that, you should just revert back and check again. Is there anywhere, again, can I reduce the space? Because every time you reduce the total I space, you turn the problem into an easier grade problem. So for example, if this is like a 5Q problem, let's say, then as soon as you reduce the space 1 or 2 points, then it's already down to like a double-digit Q problem. And reduce the space one more time, and it's like a 25Q problem. So reducing the space is just such a good way to go in a lot of cases. It should at least be your first thought most of the time to reduce the space or to expand the space if you're trying to live. And only think about vital points after that. Vital points being like moves inside. Now, there are certain shapes where you're just going to know that a certain vital point works right away and you're absolutely sure, and that's fine. Just play it. But when you're not sure of the life and death or the way to solve a problem, focus first on the outside. So we can look at this move. The problem with pushing in from this side, though, as you can see, is that this helps black make the actual I shape, the split in the territory that forms the two shapes. Now, we can't go here because black will cut. So black has a guaranteed 2 eyes now, because if we reduce like this, black plays here, 2 eyes. So this reducing the space here was a good idea, but it just helps black. So how about reducing from the other side? You play here. Now, how do we live with black? Well, you want to, again, start by thinking about expanding the space in this case. So a move on the outside, right? So how can we maximize the eye space? Well, it's going to be here or here, right? So if we play here, then again, we're playing as white now. So reducing the space, okay, it doesn't work. So now, since we can't reduce from this side anymore, we'll think about vital points. So it's going to be one of these two moves. If we play here, black has to cut us off in order to have enough eye space, and now we can extend here and it's all just one eye, right? Black is captured. And if black blocks on this side, again, just reduce the space, and if black blocks, we have a very low level, like 25 to 30Q problem here, and we just play there. Eye stealing to Tsuji. So you can simplify the problems big time just by reducing the space, or in black's case, expanding. So if you're playing white here and you just jump the gun and try to play moves inside right away, which is a really common habit for most Q players and even some lower down players, to be honest, if you just throw a stone in here, black cuts you off. Now what do? So if you reduce, black can make 2 eyes like this. And if you play again inside, which will have to be here, black can actually play like this. And now you're forced to play this move locally, but then it's actually a joseki shape, right? So this is actually both alive now. So why overcomplicate it by playing inside right away and letting black make the eye space bigger? You can just simply capture everything by playing like that. Plain and simple. Alright, so that was 2 games for you guys, technically 3. And yeah, I threw in some extra variations like those invasion in the small knights move and large knights move. Just to give you guys some extra weapons to fight with in your games. Those things come up quite often, so hopefully I gave some of you some confidence for invading 3 points. And yeah, I covered a lot of stuff in this, so I hope it didn't overwhelm you guys too much. I hope you guys found some value from this. If you did, please do like it and comment if you have anything to say. And definitely subscribe if you want to see more. Next week, we're going to do an episode of Joseki Concepts, which I haven't done in a while, so it's going to be episode 3. That'll be that for now, guys. Stay safe and keep sente.